call this meeting to order. Will everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, up next we have roll call. Ms. Martinez?
All counselors present and a quorum has been declared.
Okay, and we have one absent,
And, yeah,
excuse.
Counselor Jackie Vigil previously requested to be excused and her absence is an excused absence.
Okay, thank you so very much. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, the agenda approval.
Mayor, I would recommend that we modify the agenda. We received notice from Lynn Cotton. She had an unexpected item come up, so she will not be able to attend to provide the update on Alamosa senior citizens. We'll get her added to a future agenda.
Okay, sounds good. Ms. Sanchez, we'll go ahead and do that. Counselor Jan Vigil?
Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda excusing Miss Jackie Vigil from the meeting and moving the update from Alamosa senior citizens to a future meeting.
Thank you. We have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please start voting. Ms. Martinez?
The motion carried unanimously.
Good, thank you. Up next on the agenda is a segment for citizen comment. This is the portion of the agenda where if we have anyone in the audience who would like to make some comments, you would come up to the podium, turn on the mic, and you have 3 minutes to make your comments. Ms. Martinez, I don't have any comment cards. Did anyone give you any comment cards?
No, sir, I do not have any.
Okay, so since we don't have any comment cards for people who are in the audience today, who wanted to voice any comments, let's go ahead and turn it over to our Zoom participants, and if you can tell them how to raise their hand to be recognized.
Yes, sir. If you're on the Zoom app and you want to speak right now, you'll use the raise hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're on a telephone, you'll dial *9. Mayor, I don't see anyone choosing to raise their hand.
Okay, good. I don't see any hands either raised, so we'll go ahead and close this portion of the agenda and move on down to ceremonial items. Introduction of our new IT director.
Okay, if we can have our new IT team come forward, that would be great. I have the pleasure of introducing our new IT director, Brandon. He is a Valley native. He has over 15 years of IT experience. 9 of those years have been with us as the city of Alamosa. Brandon really just has been an amazing asset to our team ever since he started with the city. Great personality, always a can-do type of attitude, thinking outside the box, how to get things done. He also has really extensive certifications. A lot of those have allowed us to reduce some of our reliance on different types of software, or different types of services. So he's always looking to improve himself. He also is involved in the community. I know he's on the Alamosa Young Professionals. He's involved in the broadband, some state groups, all of that kind of stuff. So he's served as interim and went through the process. The interview committee was really excited. I learned afterwards that several on our interview committee through the years have tried to lure him away from us. They should have disclosed that maybe before serving on the interview committee. But we've locked him in, is what I told them. So he's off the market. But that's Brandon, and we're just really excited to have him as our IT director.
All right.
Well, thank you, Heather. Thank you very much. And thank you, council, as well. Man, it is an incredible honor to be here and to be in this position. something that I've been working towards for a very long time. I knew very early on in my career that this is where I wanted to go. And man, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the support that I've had from, the community at large, from the staff that is here that's supporting me now. And of course, very importantly, my mom and dad who are on Zoom. I'll give them a shout out. But it is an incredible honor for me. And to carry on with that, the very first thing that I'll do is this newly introduced IT director. I want to introduce you guys to a new IT technician of ours. This is Alejandro Torres. He comes to us from
Hello.
San Luis. He has a background in computer science. And we're excited to have him on our team. Alejandro, do you have any words you want to say?
I like long walks on the beach. If you guys call me on my birthday, I probably won't be here. And on Valentine's Day, I wouldn't mind flowers.
So we are super excited to have Alejandro on board. As you can tell, we definitely keep a very relaxed and fun environment in IT. We have jobs that can often be pretty stressful, and if you don't have that humor outlet, then I don't think it's the right place for you. So
Makes the day go by really fast.
does.
Okay, so I'm gonna open up the mic to our council members to make comments. For those of you, Councilor Carson.
Brandon, congratulations. They did a good job in hiring you. I know and have worked with Brandon personally, and you guys did a good pick. So congrats. The city did well. They will continue to do well. You've been a big part of the forward movement throughout the years as is. And so it was good to keep you here and for you to move up into that. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome, Alejandro. That was awesome. Good job. And
Thank
it
you.
sounds like they did a good pick too. Congrats. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Councilor Carson, Councilor Young, then Councilor Krebs.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Awesome to have you here, man. I'm glad you're the head of the department. You're gonna do great things for us. And Alejandro, welcome to the team. It's good to have a Valley native.
Yeah.
And let's do it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Young, Councilor Krebs.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
So officially, congratulations to both of you. Offline, be sure to fill him in on March 14th and May 4th.
Yeah.
Those are very two big dates here as well.
Yeah,
So, but congratulations, guys.
thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Krebs. Councilor Dominguez, then Councilor Hensley.
Congratulations, guys. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And super excited. I know, it sounds like you guys are gonna have a ton of fun, but also obviously take care of those IT needs that have become bigger and more important as each year goes on. So thank you.
And I'll wrap things up. Brandon, you've been a first-class act since I've known you, and you've always been a great resource for all of us here on council with all of our technology that we have to use. And you were amazing during the COVID time when we had to make a lot of adjustments and adaptations to the processes that we have. Just really happy to see you in this new role because it's well-deserving. Alejandro, met you yesterday, I believe, out there in the parking lot. It's a pleasure. I like your personality. And I think you're gonna blend in just well. So I wish you much success as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all so much.
Thank you very much, Council.
Oh, Ms. Sanchez.
And Brandon, if he's not here tonight, but I think we should recognize Christian as well because he did receive a promotion. So if you want to give a little bit of information for that.
Yes, Christian, another one of our members, who is currently on vacation and, the decision between this night and, being on the beach in Florida, I kind of understand. Christian started with us in 2017. He became an IT technician and, through his hard work and dedication to obtaining certifications and being a very strong, partner of the IT group, he is now our systems analyst. So he received that promotion about beginning of the year, and we are super excited to have him on board as well. In total, I think our team is very strong. And I am very excited about what we can do for the city.
Awesome. Good job. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay, council. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, consent calendar A. Councilor Yon V. Hill.
Mayor, I move that we approve consent calendar A.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please start voting. Okay,
The motion carried unanimously.
okay, thank you. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, regular business. We have presentations from outside agencies. The first one is the lead and co-responder update.
Thank you, Mayor. And Luke, if you want to come on up, and Tim and George. So we'll start a little bit with the lead, but it also crosses over, as we hope it crosses over even more, with co-responder. The Clarissa and myself have, and mostly Clarissa, have spent a lot of time this past few months closing out, because we're on a state fiscal year for this funding. So this one fiscal year is ending June 30th, and the next one's picking up for July 1st. So we've been making sure that the budget's where it needs to be, reporting on deliverables, the reports for the lead funding, as well as then working on what our scope of work is for next year. So our budget for next year, and again, we don't have to match this, is $573,527. The goals that we worked with the state on setting for this next fiscal year is to increase the participants demonstrating a decrease in the severity and/or the number of new crimes committed. And I'm not sure if you want to go back to when we had the work session, that's one of those items that I think really translates well to what our law enforcement officers wanted to see as well from a data perspective. So that's a really great goal to have with a state that will also translate well for our law enforcement. Then the next goal is to increase, for those who are enrolled, to have them be more engaged with case managers and help get them more engaged with community partners as well. And so looking at some metrics for that. Another goal is to take a look at increasing the amount of referrals from our law enforcement partners. And so again, it's not just APD, but some of the other agencies in the valley as well. And it looks like the last goal would be to just make sure we're hitting the reporting, the data collection, that all of those systems are working as well. And so really kind of finessing the budget. Clarissa and I and Chief Dingfelder and April Dominguez have, no, is it April Dominguez? Okay, like, wait, no. Anyways, we had one really intensive meeting with another one to come with this whole transition of April's position still becoming halftime co-responder program and then halftime lead effective July 1st. And so it was to go over, here's the stuff we have to report to the state. Here are some of the partners we'll need you to engage with. Here are all the different meetings and really making sure we know what her role is going to be and what duties are staying with CRP, Clarissa's role, all of those types of things. And then trying to, we don't want to overload anyone, but we want to make sure everyone feels welcome too and engaged and invited to be at the table. Before I turn it over to Luke to talk about the most recent data, I think the only other item I was going to mention is the standing invitation to attend an operational work group. I think seeing that in action and seeing how the community partners are discussing different individuals, what barriers they're running into, all of those types of things. It's just such an instrumental 1 hour type of situation to see it in action. So Luke, I'll turn it over to you if you want to do the colored stuff and anything else.
Yeah, sure thing. So I think in front of you, you do have the same handout that I'm going to speak about for just a few minutes here. And just want to recognize that when we did have the work session, we were able to talk about information that had happened, numbers and work that had been done and outcomes, et cetera, referral partners that had happened prior to January 1st of this year. And so the information you have in front of you is from that time frame through April. We don't yet have all of the main numbers pulled together in a format like this. So this is just through April. The next meeting, I can give you a more up-to-date set of numbers. But just want to give a highlight again of what work is happening. And first recognize that, again, there's many different referral sources sending participants into lead or intensive case management work. And that is a wide variety of agencies, from law enforcement agencies to healthcare agencies to other treatment provider agencies and other community partners. And you can see some of those listed here in this pie graph. In particular, I just want to note that those who know people the best are often able to make the most appropriate referrals. And an example of that is Rio Grande Hospital. They have a recovery clinic where they have a physician in-house that is seeing people who are substance addicted. And so that is an opportunity for him to really see what their needs are, what they could benefit from, and bring, make appropriate referrals then, because he's seeing them regularly. And so that's a really important partnership. And I think that especially as we continue to flesh out how can we best support law enforcement throughout the Valley, but in Alamosa in particular, trying to make sure that we're working with those folks that law enforcement officers do have more relationship with, do contact regularly, and are able to make referrals that they feel good about making because they feel like this person is ready and is ripe for some change, that they're really interested in stabilization in some meaningful way. So that's just, again, a snapshot of the types of referrals that are happening and the types of agencies that are referring. As you can see, there were 64 total referrals during that 4-month window, which is a lot of referrals for 4 case managers, hopefully soon to be 5. We're looking at hiring someone here shortly. So it's a lot of folks for them to be managing referral information and ongoing connection with. I do want to give you a sense of the numbers that are active participants, because not all referrals become active participants for a variety of reasons, primarily because they're just not ready yet, not able or interested in engaging in this type of service. Currently, among, again, those 4 full-time case managers, we have 43 that are in active status, and that means that we're meeting with them consistently. Often that's at least a weekly meeting, and then ongoing connection to different resources that might be needed in order to stabilize and be able to work at reducing the harm in their life. And that might be starting to receive treatment, that might be starting to go to behavioral health supports, that might be getting stable housing, whatever that looks like for them. So there's 43 that are in that active status. There's also 8 folks right now that we're working with that are not in active status, but they're in outreach status, which just means that they have completed some of their goals and they've maybe backed off of weekly meetings, but they still stay in touch with our case managers. Our case managers still stay connected to them. That might be to just check in about how's the new job going, you're back together with your family, how's that? So there's those infrequent check-ins, but they're still actively working with us, but not in an ongoing way towards specific goals. We have 7 that are in pending status, which means that referral has been made, but we're doing background checks to make sure that they're eligible, because there is an eligibility criteria. So we're making sure that they meet those eligibility criteria, or there has been a warm handoff, but they haven't yet done their screening and assessment that kind of fully enrolls them into programming. So they're kind of in that initial stage, but haven't yet become full active participants. So in total, there's 58 people that those case managers are working with in some, direct way, in addition to the many people that have been referred and either discharged because they've kind of successfully completed something meaningful enough that they don't need ongoing support, or they've, opted out of the program for some reason or another. And again, we talked through what some of those reasons might look like back in January. So that's just want to give you an update about what the current caseload looks like and who's currently being served. Also, if you flip to the back side of that handout, I just want to highlight, I guess, briefly 2 things. And to note, again, like Heather mentioned, a lot of this is stuff that comes up at our operational work group meetings that really there's representatives from many different community agencies, including APD and the co-responders. But in addition, there's also other service providers there, housing providers are there, other treatment providers are there, hospitals represented there, et cetera. So there's a lot of different folks around that table that come together to be able to help resource some of the challenging situations that are coming up, and to be able to talk about the folks that they've referred. How are they doing? What are they needing? How can I continue to support them? But in those meetings, we do identify what are some different barriers that people are experiencing. And there's two that I want to highlight specifically that our case managers have seen coming up over and over again. And one continues to be access to affordable housing. And I think everybody is aware that that's an issue, but just want to continue to highlight that the efforts that the city is making to address that are important. And I want to appreciate that that is at the top of everyone's priority list. And also just that that continues to be a challenge to people being able to stabilize. Because I think, as we all know, they can't really work on treatment and recovery until things are settled a little bit in terms of living situation and other factors. So if we can address those things, then they can work on recovery. So that's an ongoing challenge. And also we have continued to see, and I think, Tim can speak to this if you'd like to, you guys are coming up with behavioral health calls all the time. And there are significant needs that people are experiencing in the community around behavioral health or mental health issues. And when those folks are referred into LEAD, that's a great referral. It's important to talk about those. And those folks often are either undiagnosed and don't yet have someone that they're able to work with, or aren't receiving treatment actively because they aren't interested or aren't able to maintain consistent treatment. And if they aren't receiving those mental health supports, it's really difficult to engage in other services. And so that is a challenging population that we're still trying to figure out how to best resource, because our case managers aren't providing direct behavioral health counseling, but we're trying to figure out how to make sure that people have the resource that they need in that arena. And there's increasingly folks that have significant need that are being referred into LEAD programming. So we're really trying to work at that challenging arena as well. And then just briefly, I want to highlight some successes, because it's not just about numbers, right? It's about people. And one success I want to highlight is that there was someone that came that was really struggling with alcohol addiction and had some relapses, and in addition to some substance use, and had some relapses, and was connected with the case manager. And through that connection, there was a desire to stabilize. There had been sobriety in the past, but there had been relapse, and she was wanting to get support. And we were able to help connect her with medication-assisted treatment, and that allowed her to stabilize and begin to her path to sobriety again. And that's something, again, that there's active involvement. She checks in with our team weekly. It's an ongoing, just how are things? How are we supporting you? What's needing to happen to keep this sobriety so that it can continue to be successful moving forward? And then the other, and I think this is an interesting and fun story, that there was a younger guy, a 32-year-old guy, for me that's becoming young now, with the grays in the beard, but they were able to work with our case managers to get connected to housing. And that was really important to be able to help, again, create that stability that I mentioned earlier that's so critical to being sober. And that has allowed him to have a stable employment and to be promoted recently, and now to be working towards reunification with his children, which I think, Heather, you might have been at a meeting where that was one of the outcomes that was talked about, that this family had been reunified because of the work that's happening here. And if that's not a success, I don't know what is. So that was one I wanted to bring in front of you all as well. So I'm happy to take any questions, but that was the information I wanted to make sure to share with you tonight.
Thank you, Luke. We appreciate you. We're going to start off with Councilor Hensley, followed by Councilor Krebs, then followed by Councilor Jamie Dominguez.
Luke, thank you, first of all, for this report. And I guess I really want to say this shows, I guess this is one of those groups or committees, projects where there's so many people at the table. And obviously, when you have something this big, there might be a hiccup or two. And that when we met at our work session, everybody came with the idea of how to make this work.
Yeah.
And not to just throw in the towel, but the idea of, I'm not saying we were at the throw in the towel, but you know what I'm saying? But really, like, there's something here, and we just, sometimes we're working out those little kinks or things like that, which has to come with something this big. So I just want to commend you for coming to the table open-minded, and obviously everybody who did. And I think this is fantastic. This report is great. I love the stories, because you're right, it is about people. So anyway, I guess I just wanted to really point that out, and I'm glad we're continuing to go forward. And I think things such as having our co-responders and tweaking things a little bit to getting, to making it even streamlined better, or those type of things are just phenomenal. So it's also the foundation to continue to build.
Yeah, it's a lot of work yet to do, for sure. Yeah,
Thanks.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Councilor Hensley. Councilor Krebs, and then Councilor Dominguez. Is that the order?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I like pretty colors, so this does explain it. And what I like to see on this is how many different organizations in the valley are utilizing your services to help people get where they need. So I do appreciate that. I did have a quick question though. On the back page, the first paragraph, it said about the affordable housing shortages. It said, especially after the decision to get rid of the huts at St. Benedict's. Can you speak to that?
I really can't, and I apologize, but I can find out more information. This is something that our case managers put together as far as some things that they had been seeing and hearing. And so it must be that there was something that happened with that change that has impacted the population that they're working with in some way. So I can get more information and respond to you with
Okay.
that for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Luke, as a reminder, and I hate to throw numbers out, but there is a substantial amount of the individuals that the case managers work with that who are homeless.
Yes.
So there
yes.
is a big overlap there.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's an important note that
Yeah.
much of the population is operating there at St. Benedict's. And so any changes there, I'm sure, have ripples out that they see in some form or fashion. But I'll see if I can find out specifically what that concern or issue was for sure.
Okay, Counselor Dominguez and then Counselor Carson.
I just want to thank you guys for the hard work that you do. I know there's some things that you can't measure that are very important that you guys see. And I just want to know that I acknowledge that and keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Counselor Dominguez. Counselor Carson? Then Counselor
Thank you
Villa.
guys for what you're doing. Congrats to you guys on having a new teammate there. He'll do good for you guys. I just want to say that I appreciate that comment from your staff member. And I appreciate them being open enough to share that kind of stuff when there is that negative input, you know what I mean? Not everybody's always happy with decisions that are made. So, you know, it is good for us to hear that. So I just was gonna ask that and then she asked about it,
Yeah.
but it's important that we know things like that. And if there's any way that, as you're doing the digging to find out what the issue was, also see if there's solutions for that, you know, particular individual, because it sounds like whoever that was pretty displaced because of the hut.
Yeah,
But yeah, I appreciate them actually speaking out like that. So
sure.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Counselor Carson. Counselor Villa.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but every time we have the lead update, I just want to say again that I really appreciate it. We, as a group, some counselors, like 5 or 6 years ago, we got the idea from a CML session. We brought it to you all and you ran with it and you did it. And there were some issues with it within the last 6 months. And I'm glad that we all came together, especially your group, Luke, with the police and all the partners and worked out the kinks. And it's still going to be a work in progress. And I just appreciate that we're all trying to get there. So thank you.
Okay, and I don't see any other lights on, so I'll wrap it up. And I just want to thank you all for the collaborative efforts with the community partners that helped make this program a success. And also, I want to commend you on the success stories, because in order for us to continue to make sure that funding is available, we have to be able to show the successes in the program. So thank you for sharing that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, that's it.
Just turning it over for co-responder update now.
Okay, good deal. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, Council and Mayor. I'm just gonna give you some quick update on the co-responder. I've talked a little bit about this, you know, during my interviews and stuff like that when I was getting this job. And I'll tell you, in the 30+ years I've been in law enforcement, I said probably the two most significant, in fact, I did this interview with Chris Lopez at, oh, sorry. I thought you could hear me, Eric. But anyway, so in my 30+ years, and I did this when I did an interview with Chris, I talked about, he asked me a question about like, what are the two biggest changes you've seen and the most significant changes you've seen in law enforcement? And I told him body cameras and co-responders. I personally think body cameras is one of the best things that's ever happened to us. It's accountability as well as it, you know, it verifies what we're saying and stuff. And to me, again, it's about holding us accountable as well as giving us good evidence. And then second is the co-responder. This program is the fact that you guys were one of the first ones, obviously the first ones in the Valley to do it, is absolutely incredible. Short time I've been here, I've had the opportunity to go out and ride with them and to see the work that they do. Sorry, Eric, is to see the work that they do. And it's absolutely incredible, their interaction with very difficult people at times. And in fact, at the end of this, I'm gonna highlight the one success that just recently happened is last week. But before I do that, so to date, they've worked with 167 clients. 123 of those are active, 44 are inactive, and they've had 28 referrals to lead. But those are just numbers. I think we'll never really fully know the true impact that they have had on different citizens and probably changed their lives and made things better. But I am going to talk specifically about one that happened last week. Was it last week? Yeah, last week. And again, this is helping an outside agency. The Caneo Sheriff's Office had an incident with an individual that was suicidal, was at a cemetery with a gun and was threatening to commit suicide. They contacted me and said, hey, can we use your co-responder? We need somebody that can de-escalate this. I'm not a trained, I guess, negotiator, and the one that we had available wasn't. So Tim got on the phone with the individual who was suicidal. And over the course of 4, 5, 6 hours, probably, several hours over the course of the day, he was actually, while he was talking with the individual, was able to talk him to putting the gun down, and then they were able to get him help. So I give Tim all the credit for that. But again, to the city and to being at the forefront of using this program, because it's an absolute incredible program. And now that I've had it for a month, I don't know how we do law enforcement sometimes without. And the other agencies, I can only hope that they can get the co-responder, because these guys, Tim, Connie, and April are absolutely amazing. I'll take any questions. So congrats, Tim. Good job.
Good job, Tim.
No, it's just.
Thank you, Chief, and everyone. Good to be here tonight. I'll also take questions about the Shield 616 ride that Eric and I were recently on, but thinking about that incident last week, yeah, I work for the city, but I serve the people in the valley with the permission of my chief here. So I don't see my work doesn't end at the boundary of the city. So I'm looking forward to April's new job description and how that transformation will build a strong bridge between these two programs, these two very important programs here for the city, and looking forward to seeing where that will go. And yeah, back to the Shield 616 ride. That was a tough ride. It was emotionally impactful. That was very intentional on this ride, this 4-day ride, that we stopped and heard from officers about other officers that they had lost in the line of duty. So that made getting back on the bike sometimes a little tough when you're very much emotionally impacted by that type of sharing. We did have 2 riders from Cortez, and they lost an officer this past October. And I am busy with recruiting riders from within the Alamosa Police Department. And I think I've got some folks that are interested. But if I see some interest right now with our mayor, he's nodding his head. So let's talk. Let's talk soon, Ty. And Jamie is smiling. Maybe we get another rider there. Any questions? I'm honored to be in this position and to have our new chief as part of the department, and looking forward to growing partnerships and serving the community.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll open up the mic for council. Any councilors who would like to make any comments? Councilor Dominguez.
I want to thank George for bringing up something that he has noticed in his years in his profession, and how important it is to have people like these 2 gentlemen here to be there for people in their most desperate time of need. I've had friends that didn't have them people there before that I don't have no more. So I really appreciate you guys for being accessible. Not everybody's job is from 9 to 5. And I truly believe you guys are ready to go whenever you get a call. So thank you once again.
Thank you, Councilor Dominguez. Councilor Hensley.
I'll just echo, and I think without a doubt, all I can really say is all of you make a difference. And so thank you. And it's really, that's about all you can really say to it. And hopefully we set examples for other departments and other cities, towns, things like that.
Thank you, Councilor Hensley. I don't see any other lights on, so I'll go ahead and wrap things up. Chief, thank you again very much for the comments you made earlier about the co-responder program and the importance of the body cam. That means a lot, and I'm quite sure the public feels safe and secure in hearing you make a comment like that. And Tim, I want to commend you on helping to save that person's life and realizing that there are really no boundaries when it comes to reaching out to save others, and that means a lot. And the final thing, Tim, since you're always trying to get people to participate in things, the show 616, I have made a commitment to do the first mile with you and Eric next year, not the other 300 and something miles, but I will do the first mile with you all, okay? All right, okay. Any other comments? All right, well, thank you all so very much. We appreciate you. Thank you. Okay, council, we're gonna go ahead and move down the agenda since we're going to go down to number 3, the dark sky presentation. I think I saw our dark sky representative out there, Danny. All right.
Okay. That's good. Hi, everyone. My name's Danny Robin. I'm the Community Outreach Manager for San Luis Valley Great Outdoors, and I'm here today to present on the Sangre de Cristo Dark Sky Reserve, a project that I've been spearheading the last few years. And this is kind of a briefer, more general presentation on the project, some more information on light pollution, why dark skies are important, and some suggestions at the end for how we can move forward. So what are dark skies exactly? Well, those are places that are relatively free of interference from artificial light at night. So light pollution is really when you have an area that has unwanted or unnecessary lighting. And it can be in the form of many different things, such as glare. It could look like light trespass from, a neighbor's property, over lighting, and that light coming onto your property. And of course, electric lights are a part of our everyday lives and crucial to our society. But the fact is that about 50% of conventional lighting is actually wasted into our environment and is emitted up into the sky where it's not helpful. And it's not doing anything for people on the ground where they need it. So this leaves only about 40% of light to illuminate its intended target, because about 10% of that light is also lost to glare. And an interesting paradox I recently learned about was this paradox called Jevons paradox, in which the introduction of LED lights had increased in efficiency and energy use. But rather than decreasing our energy use, it actually increased our resource consumption, because LED lights are so efficient and so cheap and easily accessible that we end up just overlighting and instead using more energy than needed. So the point of this paradox is that our needs from lighting really haven't changed. We're just using more lighting than we have in the past. And artificial light at night has increased by 10% globally each year. And now we're seeing that 80% of North Americans can no longer see the Milky Way because of the effects of artificial light at night. And that also equates to about 1/3 of the world's population. So why are they important? Why are dark skies important? Well, for one, night sky heritage. The night sky is the world's most common universal heritage. It's a part of various cultures and traditions, and important to people to be able to view the night sky and connect with their ancestors. It's also important for ecological integrity. Natural darkness is needed for biological processes in wildlife, including nutrition, sleep, and reproduction in many nocturnal wildlife. It's also important for energy conservation and climate. Again, light pollution is really wasted energy and therefore wasted money. And it's important for human health. Just like wildlife, humans need natural darkness to be able to sleep at night. Any kind of light at night will impact your health and actually suppresses the hormone melatonin, which helps us sleep at night. So any light, but especially short wavelength blue light, will suppress that hormone melatonin and lead to different sleep disorders and increase your risk of other health disorders like diabetes and even cancer. It's also important for public safety. Obviously, light at night is very important for safety, and that's what we use it for, so that we can see at night. But oftentimes, artificial light at night is excessive and ends up, wasting energy, and can even be so overly bright that it provides more glare and constricts our pupils and prevents us from seeing. So in 2019, SLV Go heard from many different community partners about this program called the International Dark Sky Places Program, which is under Dark Sky International, the world leading entity combating light pollution. And this program really encourages places all over the world to preserve and protect their dark skies through responsible lighting policies and public education. So as you can see on the map to the right there, we're in a place that has both light pollution and some relatively dark skies. Yeah, you can kind of put your cursor over it there, but that yellow dot little to the left is Alamosa. So you can see there's some sky glow in that region, but we also have this kind of dark area within the Sangre de Cristo mountain range. So that's the area that we're looking at for proposing the Sangre de Cristo Dark Sky Reserve. You can go to the next slide. So this is a map of the proposed reserve. And the purple boundary is the external boundary of the reserve. And then you'll also see kind of an internal boundary in blue, which is the core of the reserve that meets minimum sky quality criteria by Dark Sky International. So the goal is to really work with communities in the periphery or kind of buffer region outside the core to help maintain our exceptional starry night skies within the core and receive similar benefits in the periphery. Next slide, please. So there's many steps to this process of certification. The first and one of the most important steps is just convening a group that can really lead this project, that has diverse stakeholders and is really able to, bring this project to fruition and work to, establish lighting policies, work for public education and outreach. And we've been able to do that over the last several years with SLV Go. We've also conducted a sky brightness measurement program, which basically just tells you how bright or dark your night sky is. We've inventoried outdoor lighting within the city of Alamosa. That is all lighting owned by the city. And then we've also done a lot of public outreach and education. And lastly, we have developed a lighting management plan. And I say this is in progress because we need 80% of the population within the reserve and 80% of the area within the reserve to adopt this lighting management plan. And those are really the minimum criteria and guidelines set by Dark Sky International to achieve this certification. So what does dark sky friendly lighting look like? Well, there's many factors, but one of the most kind of well-known one is having fully shielded lighting. So making sure that the lamp or the device that's actually emitting the light is fully encapsulated in a cap or a shield so that all the lighting is directed down towards the ground where it's needed. Color temperature is also important. As I've mentioned, short wavelength light is detrimental to wildlife and human health. So having a Kelvin temperature of 3000 kelvins or lower. Reduce glare and light trespass, and that really has to do again with having a fully shielded light fixture. And making sure that lighting is the right intensity. So not overlighting, making sure you're only using the amount of lighting that's needed for the task at hand. And then incorporating timing or dimming and other capabilities that make sure that light is only on when it's needed. So how will dark skies work for you? So I was able to do some research and I came up with a few different studies here that I probably won't talk through point by point, just for time's sake. But it's been shown that dark sky places are exceedingly capable of increasing the amount of revenue coming into local communities and businesses around dark sky areas. And I'm happy to send you the studies on these projects later as well. So in short, some of the dark sky benefits that the city would see is increased tourism, which means increased revenue, diverse recreation opportunities and enhanced marketing. Our local marketing and tourism entity, Visit Alamosa, has really seen local metro kind of areas coming to this area and region to see dark skies, and Great Sand Dunes has been a vital piece in that, and it continues to be. Energy savings and resource conservation, again, just by having dark sky friendly lighting within town, and then improved public health and safety and resident satisfaction because people are experiencing less light trespass. They're having a downtown that's aesthetically pleasing, where light is directed where it's useful and beneficial. So overall, those are kind of the benefits you would see as a city. And again, kind of just harping on Great Sand Dunes National Park. As an international dark sky park, they have really reaped the benefits of being a dark sky designated place. They have visitors from all over the country, all over the world come to this park to experience dark skies. And when they introduced night sky programming just a few years ago, it was such a hit that they completely just focused on night sky programming in the evenings and didn't really offer anything else because it was so popular. So in 2023, they had 45 related programs to night sky, and they connected with 3,530 people, which is really impressive. Now they just recently updated their visitor center, and they have a whole new night sky exhibit in there, which is really impressive. And as I mentioned, our local tourism entity, Visit Alamosa, is really promoting and positioning our region to benefit from dark skies as well.
And Danny, I know it's hard without our timer working, but we are
Oh, yeah.
over 10 minutes. So
Okay.
just wanted to
I'll
give you.
speed it up.
Okay.
Thank you. So really the purpose and goal of the outdoor lighting policy that you're considering is to put lighting where it's needed, where it's beneficial, to protect our night sky and promote efficient and effective use of lighting that benefits everyone and increases enjoyment for our residents and visitors. Some of the potential concerns we've heard from the community, of course, are more regulation and cost, which for this, I would just suggest continued community outreach from, SLV Go and partner organizations, being able to offer financial incentives, maybe having a dark sky committee work with the city to offer more of that technical expertise. And then with safety and security, I just want to reemphasize that a dark sky doesn't mean a dark ground. It's simply putting lighting on the ground where it's needed and is able to have that balance between safety and starlight. And then this last kind of concern with curfew, a lighting curfew and visitor traffic, I was able to look on the CDOT website on their Traffic Explorer, and you can see that between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., you had about 620 vehicles come through this corner. It's at 160 or Main and Hunt. So that shows you kind of the traffic that businesses would, essentially be missing, I guess, with their illuminated signage. But if you consider that over the course of a day, you're receiving more than 8,000, almost 10,000 visitors, it's pretty minuscule. So next slide. Here are some potential opportunities. I think it's an opportunity to improve public safety and even consider additional dark sky lighting in the south side of town where I've heard there's been safety concerns. Information sharing, innovative new programs to recognize dark sky friendly homes and businesses, and forming a City of Alamosa Dark Sky Committee to help with technical assistance and new development coming in to really be clear about what those standards look like and mean. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you for your presentation, Danny. I'll open
Thanks.
up the mics for members to make any comment. Councilor Dominguez.
Thank you for the presentation. I learned a lot about I didn't know they did the new spot at the sand dune, so I'm probably gonna go check it out.
Yeah,
So thank you
definitely
for
should.
a lot of information. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Krebs.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one question. Do you have any research on, with all the communities that do have a dark sky, what's the largest one in their population?
You mean in the world or in Colorado?
In continental United States?
I think maybe Flagstaff might be one of the biggest. Which I think is around 80,000, but I'd have to look again. And I know Durango is trying to become an international dark sky community as well. And they're about 20,000, so twice the size of Alamosa.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Danny, I'll go ahead and I don't see any other mic lights on, so I'll go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, and
your
sorry for
thorough
going a few minutes
presentation.
over.
No, thank you so much. Have a good one. Okay, that brings us to the next item on the agenda. Board commissions, business advisory board appointments.
Mayor, so as Danny's getting ready to leave and just kind of to loop everyone in, I think our staff and Danny are continuing to work together. They have been trying to engage and push at some of those points that council had in the work session. They're not exactly getting the answers we were hoping for, but we're continuing to have those to where we feel like we'll have to bring conclusion to it one way or another. So probably in the fall, bringing something back to you, but we're still in partnership working with Danny and other partners as well too. So just wanted to maybe loop all of those things together for you guys.
Thank you for doing that, Ms. Sanchez. Thank you. Okay, all right, that brings us to the next item on the agenda, advisory board appointments.
Okay.
Ms. Martinez.
So this is your annual appointment time. You did your annual recruitment. We sent out notices in April, let people apply through May, and you guys have interviewed those applicants on Wednesday, May 22nd and Wednesday, June 5th. So there are just a few boards with positions available. So the Housing Authority Board has 2 positions available with terms expiring 6/1 of 2029. Both incumbent applicants requested reappointment, and that is Billy Yolabari and Don Malgares. HPAC has 1 position available with the term expiring 6/1 of 2028. Our current board member did withdraw his request for reappointment, and we had 2 new applicants for that. So you guys will need to conduct a vote by ballot. Your applicants for that are Joe Aldrich and Margaret White. The Homeless Coalition has 4 positions available in certain categories: professional substance use rep, business community rep, homeless, near homeless rep, the housing rep, which is a council appointee. And those terms all expire 6/1 of 2025, but we did not receive any new applications. Excuse me. The library board has 2 vacancies with terms expiring 6/1 of 2029. The current board member that was there had originally requested reappointment and then withdrew. But you did have 3 new applicants who are Margaret White, Suzanne Greenwood, and Jan Owen. And then the Main Street Advisory Committee has 6 positions available. And this one's a little bit different, but there's the at-large, which has a term ending 6/1/2028. Current member that holds it is Aaron Miltenberger, who did request reappointment. You have 2 property owner positions, which have a term, one term ends 6/1/2028. The other one is ending 2026. Fran Eigenberg requested reappointment. And then we have the hospitality industry with 2 of those, one term ending 2028 and one term ending 2026. No one requested reappointment in those categories. And then retail industry has 1 term ending 6/1 of 2028, and Matt Abbey currently serves in that spot, and he did request reappointment. For your new applicants, you did have Margaret White apply also to the Main Street Advisory Committee, but we have since found out she does not qualify, so I did not put her on your ballots. So you guys will have Lacey Heersink and Carol Demlow, and you'll need to choose which area that you'd want them to serve in and then their term. And then Planning Commission has 1 position available for an at-large with a term expiring 6/1/2029. We did not receive applications for this position. And then the Rec Board has 3 positions available with terms expiring 6/1 of 2027. You only had your incumbents reapply, so Rusty Johnson, Brian Bucciarella, and Robert Anderson. So you guys will need to conduct ballots for those with people who applied for where there's more or only 1 vacancy and more people applying. So the library board and HPAC, you'll do ballot boards for. And then I did for the Main Street Advisory Committee, I'll have you fill out a ballot so you can choose the representative position you want them in and then their term. So, and then for the other ones that you will not vote on a ballot, we'll need you to make a motion to just reappoint those people.
Okay.
So it's all detailed like in the alternative section if you guys want to pull it up.
So, Ms. Martinez, can you approach us real quick, one quick comment, question?
Okay, so when you vote on your ballots, you can vote for, like, the HPAC has vote for one, vote for two, vote for none of the above, and you can continue recruitment if you want, if you don't feel the people are, good for the vacancies.
Council get that?
Maybe
Everybody?
But
good
with,
on that?
with respect to Counselor Carson's question, I think it makes some sense if you wanted to make a motion under alternative 1A to confirm appointments for boards with no more applicants than vacancies. That would be the Alamosa Housing Authority Board with Billy Ulibarri and Don Melgaris, and the Recreation Advisory Board with Rusty Johnson, Brian Pucciarella, and Robert Anderson. If you want to make that motion, we don't have ballots prepared for that because we figured that that was pretty straightforward. And then we can proceed to the balloting.
So do you want us to go ahead and accept their motion and second right now and then move
Yeah,
forward? on the
unless you have
next? Okay.
discussion. Yep.
Okay, any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. No further discussion. Let's go ahead and vote on Counselor Carson's motion. Thank you, Counselor Carson. Thank
The
you.
motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you.
Could you remind us, on the Main Street, you said there was something we'd have to pick, a 2-year and a 4-year?
Yeah, and then I also wanted to, for Jana Arnaldi, so she currently serves actually in the retail industry category, but she does not appear to qualify under that, so she would need to probably move to property owner. And then the other terms that are available, so the at-large, there's only one position for that, which ends 6/1/2028. And Aaron Miltenberger is the one who asked to be reappointed to at-large. Property owner term ends 6/1/2028. There's one term for 2028 and one term for 2026. Hospitality industry has a term, one position ending 2028 and one ending 2026. Those are both open. The retail industry term ending 6/1/2028, Matt Abbey currently holds. He can be moved to another position if desired, and the retail industry term ending in 2026 is open if you guys move Jana to the property owner. So you have one vacancy for at-large, 2 vacancies for property owner, one term ends in 2026 and one in 2028. And then hospitality has 2, same term ends, and then retail industry is the same, but Matt Abbey currently holds the term ending in 2028.
And that's all in the alternatives on the council communication. I could put that up, or if you guys have that on your screen, that kind of helps navigate through that.
Yeah, I would put it up. You should just put it up. It's on your screen if you need to see.
Holly, I have a question. The property owner opening
Yes.
that Ms. Arnold, if elected, may move into, when does that term end?
I'm sorry, which one? One term ends 2028, one term ends 2026.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This one's.
Council, while they're tallying up the ballots, if you all need to take a quick break, restroom break, feel free to do so, because this is gonna be a long night.
We know Aaron Boo. Not heavy retail. We need a retail 26.
Let's see who was.
It's just the. Will be a vacancy somewhere. Because there's six positions, but they're only appointing.
So the question is, who we have for hospital? Oh, okay, so let's do two in there as well.
I'm gonna be.
Right. We got Arnoldi, Abby, who do we have in the second retail? But we can put them. Macy's in hospitality. So we. Right, so why don't we ask Carol which one she'd rather represent, and then stays open.
Can I ask them? If they found out in the interview?
You can, or you just say that would be our recommendation is ask her whether she wants to be the retail representative for 26 or the hospitality representative. for- Why do we think Carol can do hospitality? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, put Carol in retail 26.
Yeah, she's.
She's hospitality. Yeah, so we have some opens. We have. vacancies. Well, no, it has Abby and Carol.
Oh, yeah, because we moved Janet out.
Right.
We moved Janet out of property owner.
Right, so
property owner.
there's a vacant property and there's a vacant hospitality.
So we're putting Lacey in the 2020.
Yeah, 2028, last one, 26, one vacant.
Vacancy.
I think we also have a vacancy.
Okay, we are done with our counting of the ballots. So for the Historic Preservation Advisory Committee, you guys have appointed Joe Aldrich to the committee with his term expiring 6/1/2028. For the Library Board, you guys have appointed Margaret White and Suzanne Greenwood, and their terms will expire 6/1/2029. And for Main Street Advisory Committee, you guys have only appointed 5 of the applicants into the position. So you guys have reappointed Aaron Miltenberger into the at-large seat, so his term will expire in 2028. You have appointed reappointed Matt Abbey into the retail industry with a term expiring of 2028. You have appointed Carol Demlow into the retail industry category with her term ending in 2026. You've appointed Lacey Heersink into the hospitality industry with her term ending in 2028. And you've moved Jana into the property owner vacancy ending in 2028. And then we will have a vacancy left in our property owner for 2026 term ending. And then we have a vacancy now for hospitality with a term ending in 2026. So we'll need a motion to appoint those.
Make a motion that we appoint those people as voted to our advisory board.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? If not,
Yeah, real quick.
yeah, go ahead.
Can you say the library board real quick?
The 2 that you guys have appointed?
Yep,
Margaret White and Suzanne Greenwood.
thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? If not, please start voting.
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the next item on the agenda, business development services, quarterly update on housing downtown plans. Okay, Mr. Deacon, you're up.
Good evening.
You're welcome.
I promise you aren't seeing something. I haven't grown a foot and gotten hairier. I'm not Rachel. I'm just filling in. I had to do something for Hondo's great sense of humor. Yeah, that was great. It was great. Okay, despite our fearless leader's absence, we have been very, very hard at work. So here we are. So, our RRFB installations, it's kind of a little bit of consternation, but you know what? We're almost done with it. It's been about 3 years in the making since we got the original grant. I won't give you guys the whole CDOT as my 4-letter words spiel, but it did take a while to get the permitting done on these. And, I don't know if any of you have used the ones that have already been installed, but they're pretty fantastic. We talked in our work session a little bit about the Hunt Avenue Cultural Trail design. We're super excited about it. Everybody, it looks great. I invite everyone who is around on Friday evening, at First Fridays, to stop by our booth, do some preference choices, and also take an extra stroll down to Hunt Avenue, where we're going to actually be drawing out where the new curb lines will be, and there might be some sort of prize or giveaway as well. So please come and join us. As far as funding goes, we have applied for a EIAF Main Street Live grant. This is to redo the alley between San Juan and State between Main and Sixth. So this is essentially the alleyway behind the Purple Pig and Mammoth and where the hotel is going to go. And we should be finding out more about that towards the end of the month. We've gotten some really good initial feedback from the DOLA staff. We just need to work on some budgetary things. As far as projects from a housing perspective, we have finally completed the construction design review for Tierra Azul. So essentially, they've got that RFP. They're looking for their contractors right now. We should be breaking ground in August, if you guys can believe it. We'll plan some sort of groundbreaking and you all will be in the loop. Big deal. I really can't tell you how big of a deal it is to me. Tierra Azul Planning Area 1 has been approved. You all did that at the last meeting. It's a really big deal, guys. As far as Tierra Azul, also, we just got the More Housing Now grant, the Transformational Affordable Housing Grant executed just now. And just found out that Tierra Azul also was successful in receiving a $1.5 million grant from the Colorado Health Foundation, which is a huge deal. So that was kind of the last of the sources for this phase of the project for the capital, the infrastructure. And then finally, we're just nearing up the final phases of Horizon Heights construction. So that's when the real work begins, is when they start to be occupied and the services become provided. But it really is a pretty important step in our direction in our community as far as housing goes. As far as housing, the Boyd School project was awarded a $1.1 million grant for their revitalization project. We were also encouraged to apply for a separate grant, so we'll be circling back and shooting for an August application submission with the San Luis Valley Housing Coalition. And then as far as outreaches go, this I think was a really interesting and exciting thing. We had the Boulder County Housing Authority reach out to us probably about the beginning of the year, asking to see all the really cool things that little old Alamosa is doing. And when you think about it from a state sort of priorities perspective with the city and all of our partners, I mean, we're doing the whole mobile home park preservation thing, which is a big deal. We're doing adaptive reuse. We're doing housing that is trauma-informed design and has the behavioral health nexus. We're doing a mixed income, mixed use neighborhood. I mean, really just about the entire gamut. It is something that us and our partners are accomplishing. So it's a pretty big deal. We've also been continuing our meetings with the Behavioral Health Administration to get ready for this transition from construction to occupancy for Horizon Heights. And then we're always working with our Tierra Azul partners. And like I say, we should be breaking ground there for infrastructure very, very soon. And I think that's about all I've got. Thank you.
All right, good job. We'll go ahead and I recognize the mics that are lit to ask any questions for Deacon. Okay.
Thank you.
I don't see any mics lit, Deacon, so you've done a very good, thorough job. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for the update.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it. Okay. All righty. Okay. Up next, we have Finance Public Hearing and Resolution 7-2024, third budget amendment for 2023 annual budget.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah.
And obviously, we do have Leanne here if there's any questions that I am not capable of answering. This one is a little bit out of the ordinary, so I do want to make sure and point that out. Normally, we would do a budget amendment in January to kind of close out that fiscal year, clean everything up, and all of that. With Leanne being new, she wasn't aware that we could do a budget amendment once the fiscal year was over. I'm not monitoring the line items. I didn't realize we might need a budget. So that lack of communication meant that we didn't do that normal budget amendment. So it is a little bit later in the year. But for the most part, we do consider this some housekeeping. It was important for us to do it because there are two funds that wouldn't have balanced the way they need to. And when we report to the state, that would be something they would not be happy with. But this will help fix that. It is also going to be okay for the audit. They may note that we had a late budget amendment, but it's not something that would hurt us from an auditing perspective. So when I look through what some of the changes are, from a revenue perspective, we went ahead, since we needed to get those two funds corrected, we corrected a lot of the other stuff too. One of the major positives, as we get further away from COVID, is our interest on investments is rebounding. And so you'll see an adjustment in there for revenue. I think before we were looking at 20,000 or things like that because of what happened with COVID. This is to record over $1 million. And so very positive situation there. We also record interest on investments in the enterprise fund of about 57,000. The fireman's pension, which is that little fund that we needed to get balanced for the state. General property tax coming in a little bit over 1,000. And then our community recreation fund had some general sales tax above budget, as well as more revenue from golf memberships and golf merchandise sales. One of the consistent things as we start into the expenditures is what I think happened when we budgeted for 2023 is they went off of what the budget was and not actuals. So some of our numbers on the salaries were off. This was not because we've hired more FTEs. It's not because we gave raises that you did not authorize. I think we just didn't use the actuals. We just took the budget number, and that's not something we normally do, but that's where it is a little bit off. What I can tell you, because I did get a question, how do we look for 2024? We actually had every employee listed, what their actuals were, and we applied those percentages you authorized. So we are fine for 2024 type of situation. So for legal, we have a modification to full-time salaries that also impacts medical, dental, and then an increase for training and travel. City manager, the salaries, which also impacts medical and dental. And then that public engagement, we started the newsletter and we really started getting better at our translation for Spanish-speaking populations. So that is to align those expenses and balance that out. HR, full-time salaries. We did a lot of recruitment and recruitment testing, especially if you look at law enforcement, you'll see some bigger costs there. IT is the salaries. Police admin is salaries, also medical and dental, and then adjusting the membership and dues. Police regular is full-time salaries. Grant funded overtime and vehicle replacement. We adjusted those. Development services is salaries. We went ahead and put in the airport housing project. So obviously that's a big one and we wanted to get that in there. Public works admin is full-time salaries, which also impacts medical and dental. Streets is the seasonal salaries, as well as the authorized asphalt recycler. Fleet is salaries. Parks was some gas and oil. Water, salaries, wastewater treatment plant, salaries, water treatment plant, salaries. So the fireman's pension, again, it's recording because we pass through that money that's collected. So that 1,000, so yes, that 1,223 being off would have made the state mad because it's an entire fund. The other one that is what prompted this is the employee benefit fund. And so that's getting some of those cost a little bit after. So it's the self-insurance costs, insurance admin and major medical premium. And then community rec, it's the salaries for the most part. And then the merchandise pro shop at the golf course. So those are the expenditures. The revenues that were added cover everything. And this will clean up the 2023 budget. I am available, as is Leanne, for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. I'll recognize any mics that have your lights. Any council members that have your lights on. Okay. Ms. Sanchez, I don't see any lights on. You've done a good, thorough job.
Thank you. Don't forget to open a public hearing.
Oh, okay. All righty. So we're gonna go ahead and open up the public hearing for resolution number 7, 2024, the third budget amendment for 2023 annual budget. If we have anyone who's out in the audience right now, would like to make any comments in regards to this hearing, please come up to the podium and speak into the mic. And I'll go ahead and start with this audience first before we go to Zoom. Do we have anyone in the audience? Don't see anyone coming to the mic, so I'll go ahead and open up the comments for the people who are on Zoom. Ms. Martinez, can you share with those people how to raise their hand to be recognized for this public hearing?
Yes, sir. If you're on the Zoom app and you want to speak right now, you use the raise hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're on a telephone, you'll dial *9. Mayor, I don't see anyone choosing to raise their hand.
Okay, I don't see any hands raised either, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to council for comments. Councilor Hensley?
I go ahead and, unless there's any comments, I'll go ahead and move that we approve resolution number 7-2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please start voting. Thank you, Councilman. Ms. Martinez?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, on the police. First reading of ordinance number 10-2024, adopting 2024 model traffic code.
Thank you, Mayor. The city has in the past adopted the model traffic code, which is promulgated by the Colorado Department of Transportation to have a statewide standard for traffic ordinances throughout the state, make them consistent. The CDOT has now issued its 2024 model traffic code. This is a revision to their one that we're currently under, which is the 2020. In general, it's pretty much the same. There were a couple things that I wanted to highlight. There's a lot of new language in this 2024 version relating to the use of automated ticketing, which we don't have. That's the cameras at intersections that if you run the light, automatically send you a ticket. If we chose to go that way, we would have to pay attention to that kind of stuff. We are proposing to adopt it, but it's irrelevant to us in our current situation. Additionally, also, it used to be that there was no definition of what a reasonable speed was when you're passing, for instance, a state trooper who's got someone pulled over. You got to pass that you've got to reduce speed to a reasonable speed when you do that passing action, but no definition of what that was. This new version defines that essentially as 20 miles an hour less than the speed limit that was in place at the time. And then we typically change a number of things in the model traffic code to be particular to us. In particular, we've got some stuff in there about the downtown pedestrian zone, about where you can have bicycles, things like that. That is carried through. Those same changes are carried through into our 2024 version, or the proposal is to carry them through. And then one of the reasons that this wasn't put on consent calendar for first reading is there are some things that you can choose to think about or not think about, but make a conscious decision one way or the other. And that is some of our Alamosa specific stuff we may want to change. The one that came to mind and I put in the alternatives was we have a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in parking lots, in private parking lots. Do we like that number? Do we care? I'm not aware of any issues with it. We have the opportunity to revisit the issue of allowing off-highway vehicles on streets. We had that opportunity when we adopted the 2020 version and didn't feel any need to mess with it. I don't know that we do now. We could raise the default speed at which bicycles are allowed to roll through stop signs. That's currently 10 miles an hour. The model traffic code allows you to increase it if you want to anywhere up to 20 miles an hour. I do a lot of bicycling. I wouldn't recommend we do that, but these are things to think about. So That's the nutshell.
Okay, all righty. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to council. Because I don't think this is a public hearing, right?
It is not. No, this is
Okay.
first reading.
All right. So Counselor Carson?
So remind me again, what we talked about in the past as far as off-highway vehicles in town?
We haven't really talked about it in the past. There's an opportunity that the code, the model traffic code provides for if we wanted to allow off-highway vehicles on certain streets in town, we could do that. We could designate streets where that's possible. For instance, if we had the RV park over near the golf course developed, we might have wanted to think about where you could run golf carts down certain streets. I don't know. Obviously that didn't happen. I'm not suggesting there's a need for it, but there is an opportunity. I think South Fork might have some places where that's available because they have a much higher concentration of those off-highway vehicles up there.
Okay.
I always want to have conversations about that, but I think there should be places that are allowed instead of a complete ban in town. Or, I mean, I know that if you have certain markers on them, and Chief, you could correct me if this is wrong. Can you have one on if you have like a safety marker for plowing snow and stuff? Could you drive it on the road?
No.
No?
There's not an exception for
Okay.
it unless it's designated road.
So those are the things that we could talk about is like if we have markers on them, being able to drive one from like point A to point B without having to trailer it, if you're plowing snow, things like that. You know what I mean? Those are actually conversations I would like to have in the future about that. So I don't know if we can always change it later, but I think it's pretty inconvenient, especially in the winter, if you're plowing and you're in the neighborhood, having to trailer it from place to place. I think that just kind of.
Yeah, and certainly we can change it at any time. We can modify it. When we adopt the model traffic code, our adoption is not considered final until CDOT approves it because of the changes that we make or are allowed to make. Any locality that adopts the model traffic code needs to send their version with all of their Alamosa specific provisions to CDOT and get CDOT's stamp of approval. So we could do that with we know that CDOT has approved our Alamosa specific provisions in the past. And then if we wanted to subsequently make changes to that, we'd run those changes by CDOT as well.
Do you know if it was, and I mean, just from my experience, I don't think it would be, but do you know if it's like been an issue in South Fork? Is it like abused? Is it crazy or?
So I actually have quite a bit of experience with it when I was on State Patrol. So what South Fork did is they allowed it on certain county roads and streets to go from those streets onto the county roads, and the county had to adopt that as well to get into the forest. And as far as I know it, well, there's been some issues over that. And in fact, there was a big issue because then they were just bypassing some of that, going in ditches and stuff like that. But I will tell you, it's been done in quite a few places around the state. Up in Lake City, it was part of a project that we actually got CDOT to allow us to use part of the state highway. There's an area up there called the Bachelor Loop. So it's possible to do that. It's just going to take some work to do it.
Thinking about, okay. All right, thank you. I was just curious about that.
Thank you, Counselor Carson.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that.
Okay, Counselor Vihil?
Mayor, I move that we approve the proposed ordinance and as written on first reading and set for a public hearing on July 3rd at 7 PM or soon thereafter.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please start voting. Ms. Martinez?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, the second reading and public hearing for ordinance number 9-2024, an ordinance approving two intergovernmental agreements with the Colorado Department of Public Safety and Colorado State Patrol.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is fairly much a housekeeping ordinance. We already have dispatch agreements for fire and police with the Colorado State Patrol in place. Those are due for renewal at the end of June. And so this is a timely time, or I'm sorry, the end of July. So this is a timely time to take care of it. The new proposed contracts have estimated amounts, which have gone down from our last one because there were some errors in the last one that didn't entirely get sorted out. These, however, are just estimates. The actual numbers of calls will determine what we're billed as a proportion of the total call volume and then total price. So you need a public hearing on this because it's second reading, but I think it's pretty straightforward.
Thank you, Mr. Sweetso. Okay, so at this time, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for ordinance number 9-2024, an ordinance approving 2 intergovernmental agreements with the Colorado Department of Public Safety, Colorado State Patrol to provide radio dispatch service to Alamosa Police Department and to the Alamosa Fire Department based on the city's proportionate share of statewide calls. We have anyone in the audience who would like to make any comments in this public hearing, please come up to the podium and make your comments. Okay, I don't see anyone in the audience coming to the podium. So Ms. Martinez, if you don't mind, could you share with the participants online how to raise their hand to be recognized to participate in this hearing?
Yes, sir. If you're on the Zoom app and you want to speak right now, you'll use the raise hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're on a telephone, you'll dial *9. Mayor, I don't see anyone choosing to raise their hand.
I don't see any hands raised either, Ms. Martinez, so we'll go ahead and, bless you, we'll go ahead and close this public hearing and bring it back to council. Councilor Carson.
Mayor, I will make a motion that unless there's any other questions, that we approve the ordinance entering into the intergovernmental agreement with the State Patrol.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, please start voting. Ms. Martinez.
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the next item on the agenda under Parks and Recreation. Second reading and public hearing for ordinance number 4-2024, an ordinance approving official hours for public use of City of Alamosa Parks, open space, and prohibiting deadly weapons in all selected parks, open space, and recreational facilities. That's you.
Thank you, Mayor, for saying that, and so I don't have to say it.
Okay.
Good evening, council.
welcome.
Again, we're here for second reading. If you'll recall, you guys tabled this in April and asked staff to bring you some maps to maybe look at areas to exclude from the ordinance. Before we get in, so we have developed those maps, and thanks to Deacon for helping with that a lot. Before we get into those maps and talk about specific areas, a few more contextual notes. One, this was originally developed, if you'll recall, as a tool really for law enforcement to engage folks after hours in the parks. So just reminders of, it's been a little while of why this is before you originally. We also have a new police chief, so you may want some input from him, so that's up to you. And also, remember, it's still concealed carry. I just wanted to remind you is exempt from this and law enforcement and that stuff, so nothing's changed there. And finally, there's those provisions where, say the hours in the parks aren't working well, then I or our department can change that. It's the things like alcohol, weapons, drugs that, still need to come before you. So with that, unless there's anything to add from staff, I'll start to go through these maps with you. Sound good?
Yeah, let's go through the maps and everything, and then we'll open it up to the public hearing, then I'll bring it back to council for comments. That way you can get through it. All right?
Sounds good. Can you maybe reduce the size of that so we can see the whole thing? That's okay. Just that gives you our areas there, right? So the riparian park is up there next to the ranch. But then don't forget, we have our Malm Trail area down by the wastewater treatment plant. So yeah, that's better. Okay, next slide, please. So as we look at these areas, first is that Malm Trail area. We have 2 miles or so of ours, and then some trail goes on to the wildlife refuge there. And then that area north of the wastewater treatment plant isn't really developed or anything. That's more their area. Next slide. Riparian Park, 5 miles of trail behind the high school there. Next slide. All right, here we have kind of Eastern Ranch, more it's known as Blanca Vista Pond, and that area along Highway 17. You know, if you remember in the ranch plan, that's an area that would be maybe open to potential development, but certainly some used trails in there, right, with the diagonal and adjacent to the golf course there and the dog park and all of that. So pretty popular area. Next slide, please. All right, what we've called Ranch Northeast here is, you know, almost still central ranch operations wise, because you have the Maddox residence there, or where Alan and our lessee down at the bottom there are kind of based out of. But then you still go up north there, kind of main operations of the ranch in this area. Next slide, please. Northwest Ranch, all right, this would be maybe considered, you know, your most remote area of the ranch. We have one trail, the Simpson Loop, in the southeast corner down there. It's kind of hard to see. It's that yellow trail there, right? So northwestern most portion of the ranch is what you're looking at there. Next slide, please. 3D, another part of the ranch. So we separated the ranch into kind of 6 areas. It was like Malm Trail was one area. The riparian park was area 2. And then all these 3s are 6 different areas of the ranch, just to give you a little bit better overview of things. So 3D Central Ranch, this is our Oxbow recreation area. Disc golf is in there, lots of trails. Pretty heavily used recreation area as part of the ranch. Next slide, please. 3E, our river left bank, or, you know, kind of riparian corridor area, that yellow area on there. Obviously, the main levee trails are there from the State Avenue boat ramp down there in the bottom right corner. All the way up to Maddox Lane, or the bottom of the disc golf area, where you get into the disc golf and the trails there on that road. Next slide, please. 3F, what we've called the driving range down there in the middle center. Not much action going on in this parcel of the ranch, no trails. It's kind of more used for ranching proper. So that's that area, close to development, close to housing, as you can see. And I believe that's the 8th section. So I would, Holly, if you don't mind going back to that first one, the overview, that might be the best place to start. Thank you. And certainly if you guys have any questions, I'm here. I assume George is willing to come up here too. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So what we'll do, and then we'll open up for a public hearing, because before the meeting, I know there's at least one person mentioned that they want to make some comments, and then we'll come back and bring it back to council for additional comments, okay? So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing, and If we have anyone in the audience who would like to make any comments in regards to ordinance number 4-2024, please come up to the podium and speak into the mic and make your comments. It's okay.
My
If you can
name's
just
Arthur
state your
White.
name, there you go.
My name's Arthur White. I live at 408 9th Street here in Alamosa. I work at the post office and I'm a disabled veteran. I served 9.5 years. One thing that I've learned, my travels around the world, is you can never, ever give up your rights according to the Constitution in America anyway. But I wanted to start off by stating a story of a young lady, and I'll tell you more about her later. In our country, this young lady states, they voted in a man as our new leader. He was overwhelmingly popular. He got close to 98% of the people's vote. The people loved him dearly, and a few months into his reign, murder and crime rate was up. So the man suggested, after he got elected, that the people register their weapons. And the people loved him. They were cool with that. And about 7 months later, he said that that did not work. It wasn't working. So he asked the public again, it's not working. Can you turn in your weapons? That's the only way that we can stop this. The people at this point were not so happy about him, but it was already too late because his power had gotten so strong. And this person was Adolf Hitler. And the lady was 10 years old, and her name was Kitty Worthman. I'm just nervous. Okay. And I just wanted to share that story with you. And as Benjamin Franklin once said, those who would give up essential liberties to purchase a little temporary safety end up losing both. And Abraham Lincoln, which we all know, he warned the people of the future, not his era. And he said, I quote, that in the future, if maybe thousands of years, don't interfere with anything that the Constitution, for that it must be maintained, for it is the only, I repeat, the only safeguard we have for our liberties. And my personal saying was, in this sad world of ours, full of greed, ignorance, and sorrow, comes to all, even the young, as long as you remain blind. But I'd like to remind the council that this law or ordinance that you want to vote on is strictly against the Constitution, the city charter, the state law, and the Constitution of the state of Colorado, and the Constitution of the United States of America. And if you guys, I don't have a problem with ordinances of time, you know, like closing her down, whatever, for safety. But when you want to take innocent people's open carry away and then suggest that people who train and are trained, and I'm very familiar with weapons, that they cannot carry conceal, which I don't know if that was you guys or if that was just in the newspaper, but I just want to address that too, that this issue of no open carry, you guys all swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, and that should never, ever be infringed. And that's all I got. So just think real hard about it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. White. We thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so do we have anyone else in the audience who would like to come up and make any comments in this public hearing before we go to Zoom participants? If so, please come up to the podium. Okay, I don't see anyone else in the audience coming to the podium, so we'll go to the Zoom participants. And Ms. Martinez, if you can share with them how to raise their hand so they can be recognized and make comments.
Yes, sir. If you're on the Zoom app and you want to speak right now, you use the raise hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're on a telephone, you'll dial *9. Mayor, I don't see anyone raising their hand.
Okay, I don't see any hands raised either, Ms. Martinez. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll have Andy come back up to the podium, and if you could put his slides back up so that council can ask their questions regarding this issue. And we'll start off with Councilor Hensley.
So if it's okay, I would like to hear the chief's feedback on this, just to see.
Thank you, Councilor.
Yeah.
I guess, do you have specific questions that you want addressed?
I guess, I know when this came up, it was obviously the whole idea is for safety. And then I know at the last meeting, which, or the meeting this was discussed, which I had a family emergency, so had to leave sort of in the middle. So I got caught up a little bit. Then there became some discussion, obviously animals, things like that. So with that balance of those discussions, I guess, I know what this does is kind of give a tool. How I was sort of told about this, or how it was explained, was it really is a tool so that if there is somebody or something happening that feels like needs some investigation, then it gives a tool to further investigate that situation that you might see.
So you're talking specifically about the hours.
No, the hours to me, it's about the guns.
It's about the guns. Okay.
So can I jump in just a little bit? Because, and then this might help you, because some of this started before Chief started. So I think the one part that was definitely initiated by police was the concept of the park hours. And so when we have individuals, we have a no camping ordinance, but someone sleeping on a bench probably doesn't trigger that. And so this was one of the items the officers brought to our attention of, hey, if we have hours, then we don't have to prove the camping. It allows us to engage. And, you know, if someone's running through the park at night and they're a jogger, as Andy explained, we can engage and let them continue. But if they're sleeping, or if they're doing other activities that probably don't need to be done at 1 a.m., then that can help them move individuals out. So that was kind of one part. The other part then was looking at what was going on across the state. So this wasn't necessarily initiated by officers, was the idea of weapons in our park facilities that also include trails and parks and open space type of thing. Now, once we started generating that, I do think it was run by, at that point, Interim Chief Spangler and his staff. And so I think your question would be more on the trail side, the weapon side, not so much the park side. So on the trail parks, the concept of weapons, do you have an opinion then on, does that help to increase safety? I do know the officer who was there that night maybe gave an example of, you know, if someone's walking with a rifle versus someone with a handgun type of situation as well. So I'm not
That wasn't
trying
the
to
officer.
lead.
That was Counselor Krebs that brought that up. That wasn't the officer.
Okay. Okay, so I didn't want to lead you, but I wanted to try to maybe separate out what probably did come from law enforcement, what didn't.
Yeah, so I did have a conversation with some of the officers today, because I knew that there would be questions on this. So I think as far as like on the trails and that, I think let me go back. I think one of the things we're trying to do, right, is like the, obviously safety and stuff. And I'll tell you from my own personal opinion, because I will be straight up, I'm a Second Amendment guy. I spent 6 years in the military and grew up with weapons and stuff like that. So I do believe in the Second Amendment. And I believe, but I also fully believe in responsible gun ownership, because there's a lot of irresponsible gun ownership. So I just want to clarify that. As far as on the trails, I'll give you my own example. I go take my dogs walking out every day, and I walk in the field. It's an open field, private property out there. Just because of the fact that there are mountain lions and stuff out there, I do carry a gun with me when I'm walking my dogs. So but again, responsible gun ownership. Now, do I carry an AR-15 or a shotgun or something out there? No. That's going to draw attention to me if I'm walking out in the middle of the field out there with my shotgun or an AR-15 or something. So as far as on the trails now, here in the park, like on especially during special events and stuff, do I think we should have people walking around with an AR-15 or a shotgun? I do not. I do not believe that we should have that. But again, now whether open carry or concealed, I do see the benefits of it being concealed, but I also know that most of the people in my experience that do open carry are usually pretty responsible gun owners. And that's just been my experience over 30 years of law enforcement, coming across them, working events all across the state, that the majority of those carrying concealed or carrying open have been responsible. But I also understand we are in a complete different time, right? Where that can really cause, concern for people that are at a family event or something like that. And I do believe, right, and just make sure I'm current here, that during special events, we do ban weapons in the parks and the special events. Is that correct? I believe that's what Joey told me, is that we do ban that. It's supposed to be posted and whatever during special events like Summerfest, stuff like that, that they're not allowed during special events.
I have no idea. Andy might know because there are specific rules, like I know for Summerfest, you're not supposed to bring your dog. There were, of course, a number of dogs at Summerfest, but
so the dogs were relaxed by the committee. So those are policy things, right? And there's no weapons by policy at those events, but it's not law is my understanding.
And Chief, I think that's maybe where some of the discussion started happening and why we numbered this is there a difference between having open carry in a special event in a park or in a park in general versus being out on a trail or not? And so you may want to dig into that a little bit.
And the rec center too, like City Hall has a weapons ban. Is that law or policy? So,
right, that's City Hall policy.
Yeah.
It's posted, and therefore it is enforceable under city ordinances which say you cannot violate policies applicable to city buildings and property.
Because I just wanted to add, some of this was driven like Saturday basketball, should open carry be in the gyms when there's families and kids and all that. So it's not just trails and parks. I think it's important just to, that we're talking about our brick and mortar facilities as well.
Can we chime in? Do we have input?
So what we can do is, did he answer your question? You brought up. Okay, let's let him answer her question, and
Okay,
then
so-
Carson is next, and then you're next after her.
What was your question, I guess, because I'm still confused.
She asked for an opinion.
He's getting to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
so like I said, like I said, use myself as an example. I do carry it when I go out just because of the fact that there's, I have small dogs and coyotes or something like that. But I don't carry a shotgun or an AR-15 that in the park. During events, I don't believe there should be rifles and stuff like that during special events and stuff like that, unless it's a sanctioned event or something like that. And again, going back to concealed versus open carry, again, it's been, concealed. Obviously, you got to have a permit and it's not visible. And there is at least some training that goes into having a permit. You've got to take a class and get background check and all that. Open carry, again, just 30 years of law enforcement. It has been my experience, that those with open carry, are usually pretty responsible gun owners. And I've just seen that. Now, are there irresponsible ones? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. So my opinion on it is basically that. I mean, I get exactly what we're trying to do here, right? Because when people do show up with a gun, that can cause some fear and it can cause some concern and stuff. But again, I think we have to balance that with, you know, the rights. And I think that's a tough balance sometimes. So if you're asking for, I know that was spoken kind of like a politician, but I'm trying to be, you know, thoughtful on it too. And I mean, it's, you guys are the ones to make the policy and stuff. So, but that's just kind of my thoughts and opinions on it.
Thank you, Chief. We're gonna go with Counselor Carson, then Counselor Dominguez, then Counselor Jan Vigil. Counselor Carson, you're up.
The issue that I have with this more than anything is the lumping together, like I said. I think we would have been better served. And again, my suggestion will be still right now to table this and separate them. I don't believe these two ordinances I don't believe this ordinance should be one ordinance. I think the gun issue is completely separate from the hours. And I agree with everything in the safety aspect. I personally feel if somebody walks into the park with an AR-15 or a shotgun, you do need a cop there because they're having an episode or they want attention. That's just irresponsible gun ownership. Again, that's my biggest issue. I get what the mantra is behind this and what the city's trying to do. I don't believe that we should infringe on open carry for the same reason the chief just said. If you're walking the trail, you know, you can encounter things you don't want, pet, animals, other things, but the hardest part for me with this whole thing is that we're combining it with hours and park issues, and they're two really separate issues. And so, I mean, my suggestion will be to table this and separate them out. That will be my hard suggestion. If it flies through like this, I'll just be frank with you guys. I'll be a hard no on this, the way it sits. I just can't support it. I really do think we should rethink this, separate it out, and it'll be a lot more palatable to the public. It's, as always, it's not just us that we have to be concerned about. We have to be concerned about the constituency and the people out there and what their beliefs, rights, and feelings are as well. So I think they should be two separate issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Carson. Counselor Dominguez, then Counselor Jan Vigil, then Counselor Hensley.
So my stance on it is the same. By any means, I didn't want nobody to think I was infringing on safety. That's not what it is. It's about rights too. From the beginning, I think our conversations initially were asking for map separations because we did agree to parks, facilities. We didn't have no issue with that. But like Carson said, and like I said when we had this discussion, was the overreach according to just what the state doesn't always apply to every county. I grew up with hunters. I grew up with guns in my family. I've also learned how to become a responsible gun owner. And once again, my daughters, I have 4 of them who do walk on the dike and have dog, and we do have mountain lion sightings. There's a tremendous amount of things I can say where I feel that it needs to be separate from the curfews. And I appreciate this, everybody tabling this. This was one of my first efforts as being a city councilman where I had a hard time to just agree with everybody. And I know that's why I'm not here. I'm here to support everybody as a community, and I by all means don't want anybody to think that I'm not taking safety into consideration by being on the end of this. But I also know that if we keep letting an overreach of our rights and bundling up with other things is where we do lose control, like Mr. White said. And I am a firm believer that we owe it to not only people like him who thank you for your service and whatever you went through to get here. And all my kids have guns, and it's for a tremendous amount of reasons: hunting, safety, and I don't think we should fear that. I think we should fear not being able to protect ourselves. And that's why I want to advocate for this. But I am in agreement with all the parks. I don't think we should have open carry in events. I never once went against that. But the open spaces for anybody who is familiar with nature, you don't want to get caught in between a mountain lion, your dog, or your kids. And these, I appreciate the maps. They really was what I was thinking about when I did express my opinion, so thank you. When I thought about what an open space was and I asked you what the boundaries were, this is exactly what I was thinking of. Not once did I think that we should allow people just to carry guns around town or in public facilities. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Counselor Dominguez, Counselor Hill, then Counselor Hensley.
So I'm just wondering, like, I'm reading the first paragraph under background on our council communique. Staff opinion continues to be anyone desiring to bring firearms to any city park, open space, area, or park and rec facility is better suited pursuing their concealed carry permit. Enhancing their firearm safety acumen as expressed by APD leadership. Is that what really APD leadership wants? Is that what you guys want? And then why was this brought up when we know that the issue is vagrancy and bad things going on in our parks late at night? That's the issue. If there's not an issue with the weapons, then why are we bringing this up?
So I think if we were to rewatch some of it, that was it Sergeant Squires shared a few different instances of individuals with weapons. And so I can't recall the specifics. So it wasn't this overwhelming thing. So could it have been two different ordinances? Yes. But I think what our hope was for tonight was, okay, if there's agreement on the hours, let's set that to the side. And then can we parcel through the weapon, or is there just no interest on any of it? Or by parceling it is there agreement on facilities? So rec center, multi-purpose facility, that kind of thing. Then the next layer down would then be parks. And is there a difference as it relates to parks at any time or parks just during special events? And then let's see if we can tackle the trail/open space. And that's why we numbered them, because we thought that might be a little more complicated. But for all of that, if there's just no interest at all from the gun perspective, including the facilities and all of that, then you don't have to table it. You can just lop that off and still then approve the hours, or the city attorney might be correcting me.
No, I'm
Attorney
not.
is lying on, okay.
Not a correction, just sort of an elaboration, just to bear in mind the structure of the ordinance. The ordinance itself, all it does is adopts three different sets of proposed rules, one for dog parks, one for facilities like the rec center and the multipurpose rink, and one for trails and open space. And embedded in those rules, so there's then three sets of rules that are attached to the council community, they're attached to the ordinance. The ordinance approves them, and you can modify them as you wish. Each of those, well, not each. The dog park rules don't talk about guns at all. The facilities rules do, and the parks or the trails and open space rules do as well in one place. And so, for instance, for the facilities rule, you could say, fine, we don't want guns in our facilities. That's fine. For the trails and open space rule, there's nowhere that calls out specifically the parks, but there is a listing of every single park attached. And so for Councilor Dominguez, if you said, yeah, parks, we don't want to allow open carry, then you would just name them all, Blanca Vista Park, Boyd Park, Carroll Park, Centennial Park, Bull Park, no open carry. And that would be how you would change those rules. So that's the structure. The ordinance just adopts these three different sets of rules. When you're getting down into the nitty gritty, look at those sets of rules and see what in there you might want to change. And the fire or open carry is just one. There's all kinds of rules in each of these sets of rules. There's, you got to have appropriate behavior. You can't be disruptive. You got to have, shoes and shirts. I don't know what's all in there, but they're a page
But-
plus of rules.
But Counselor Vihel, a direct answer to your question though on this part that says expressed by APD leadership. So this entire thing before first reading was run by APD leadership. So a portion of it was initiated, but then the rest of it was run by them. We wouldn't have written this unless that was an accurate statement. We have different APD leadership now. And so that I can't answer on if that remains consistent or not.
So let me, for the sake of order, we got Counselor Hensley and we'll come back to you, Counselor Carson.
So.
She hadn't had a chance to speak. Go ahead.
So, okay, so on the gun thing, I guess where I would be with this, so we already put a sign up on our building here, like this one here saying no guns. And that didn't come to us, you guys, it was just done, correct? So we could do that for the rec center.
Right, here's the funny thing about the rec center. And I can't remember whether it's in charter or in the code of ordinances. It's in charter, I think, that says that council can approve rules governing recreation facilities. It doesn't say anything about council approving rules governing city buildings, but specifically, council approves rules governing recreation facilities. So that's why Andy, it came to me and said, hey, can I just adopt these? And I said, kind of says council has to deal with recreation facilities.
I'm gonna support the fact that I really do think this needs to be separated out, or I guess my thought at this point is, I agree with all the time stuff. And so I think that's sounding like where we're at with this is because that's the big issue. I'm not seeing where there's been an issue with the guns. And so I also have to say is I'm not sure even parceling it out, maybe just saying that on the building or something like that, but I have concerns over rights as well.
Well, and what Heather wasn't remembering was we did have a stabbing in Cole Park, I think,
Last year.
and then we had shots fired in Carroll Park.
Those
So
were all illegal gun owners.
Yeah, those are illegal
They were
anyway.
Kids, they weren't supposed to have guns anyway.
I couldn't tell you whether they
Well,
were
they were,
supposed to have
so-
guns or knives.
And this
but-
has nothing about knives. This is about guns.
Oh, it does say knives.
Okay, but the thing is that was illegal already. So somebody who's really wanting to do something, they're going to do it regardless.
Guys, I gotta bring something up.
Are you done? Okay, Counselor Carson,
Okay, so
then Counselor Vihil.
I appreciate the work you guys have done. I appreciate what you're trying to do. I really do. I'm not knocking any of it. But there's a problem here beyond this, okay? Tonight, you just brought up this whole thing about what we could have done, these rules, breaking it out, doing all these different things, okay? This is a giant issue. And to throw this kind of an issue where we have the possibility of engaging in a 2-3 hour conversation on an agenda that is this meaty is counterproductive. And this is again, is something like this is something that we need to have a work session on. If you believe that council is going to have this much issue with something, we need to talk about this in advance. Because being pressured at 9:40 at night or 9:20 at night to make decisions on issues like this, again, it's not fair from a council standpoint. It's late, we're tired, you're throwing a lot at us. And just in what you just said earlier, it confuses things more. So again, my suggestion hard is going to be that we separate this out or table it. Or we vote tonight, approve the hours, and the dog park and the other stuff with the guns needs to go away till we discuss it. In reality, we don't need a new law to walk up to somebody that's swinging a sword in a park or somebody that's causing an issue or has a gun that's causing a concern. Those are things that officers can already do. They can make these encounters. This is kind of a mess. And I'm just saying that in the future, we need to really think about issues like this if they're going to be this big and we're going to have to tear them apart. We need to work on them beforehand. Thank you.
Hey, Counselor Carson. So any other comments at this time? So let's get back to the original intent. And if you could you just clarify and just for those who probably weren't here or those who missed it or those who weren't really listening, can you explain your map, proposed open carry areas? What do these codes mean right here? And also the concealed portion of it as well.
Some of these areas were also developed because there was talk of, maybe some areas are more remote, like, Blanca Vista Park has regular high usage, whereas if you're on a trail, you might see, you might be the only one on a trail on other things. So that drove a lot of this parsing the ranch out. I guess, is there anything specific you want me to talk about the areas? I mean, I certainly know them very well, but
Sure, are you saying just the color different? Go ahead, Councilman.
Well, I think, Mayor, what he's tasked us to do, and it doesn't sound like there's enough interest to do that, is to identify which parts of this map we would say yes to open carry or no to open carry. And it sounds like up here, there's not enough interest to have that conversation tonight.
Thank you,
Right.
Council.
Well, yes, and that's what the direction was from council after tabling it as well, was to create this map to parcel out the different parts. So yes.
And again, that would have been a great discussion, but not under this much time and so much pressure. And I understand what you're trying to do, Mayor. I really do. And I understand the information. But if we're gonna be tasked with the ones picking apart this map, this should have been a work session instead of in the middle of a meeting as an agenda item. I just think it's bad practice. Sorry.
So,
I'll just,
go ahead, Counselor.
I'll stand by what I said 2 weeks ago with the remoteness of some of the places out here. I am good with open carry, safety of animals, whatever. I get that 100%. I am not okay with open carry in a park on the dike right here where I go and jog every morning or whatever with families and strollers and that. I'm not okay with that. But that's where I'm at. I don't know. I don't know where we go from here, Mayor.
Okay, let me go to Counselor Domingos and then Mr. Sweets, I'm gonna ask you a question next. Go ahead.
So I was gonna ask if we could make a motion to table this, and now that we have the maps, we can decide.
I'll second that.
Oh, hold on 1 second.
Is there a way? Because we're getting into the warmer weathers, is there a way to take off the part that relates to the weapons and move forward the part that has to do with the hours of operations?
I'll second Counselor Dominguez's motion I'll second Counselor Dominguez's motion, adding in to vote to approve the park hours as stated by the ordinance.
Could I make a suggestion?
Yes, please.
Again, the ordinance doesn't address anything. It's each individual set of rules that addresses it. So you could do a motion to remove the bullet point on the Parks and Rec facility rules if you want to. Now, again, those are the ice rink and the rec center. Remove the bullet point that says possession or use of deadly weapons. That's the only place it's addressed in those rules. So approve it, but remove that bullet point. And then on the parks, trails, and open space rules, you could approve that one, except remove the bullet point about knives, other dangerous instruments, and deadly weapons. And then you've got the whole
Where are
set
you
of
looking?
rules.
All the
That
attachments.
puts us in a bad spot because I don't think people should walk into the rec center or ice rink with a gun either. I mean, it's
Well, we
it's a
can-
weird
We
dynamic.
can
And
bring
so
that part back to you. So I guess so following Eric's lead, if we remove any language related to the weapons and firearms from the rules, the different sets of rules, that at least then gets us the hours type of situation. Is that a correct statement?
The hours and all the other rules. So the no alcohol, the no camping in tents, the no littering, pets must be on a leash. All that stuff is in these sets of rules.
Could you point, I'm sorry, could you point to the direction of, there's so many attachments. Where are we looking?
So if you go to the attachments, the 1, 2, 3, the fourth one down is the rules governing parks and open space. The fifth one down is the rules governing facilities, which is essentially the rec center and the ice rink. And the sixth one down is the dog park.
So you're kind of combining them all together. Okay, so I only feel comfortable voting on times today. That's all I feel comfortable with.
In other words, you don't want to vote on that no alcohol and no littering and no disruptive
I feel like we're
behavior.
picking I want to make sure we're voting on the right things. This is just too big of a you're putting a ton of stuff together. It's sort of like sometimes when politicians start putting all of their pet projects, and I'm not saying that's what's happening, but that's what I'm feeling a little bit, that there's so much here that we're pulling and picking out pieces.
So let's just table the whole thing.
So council, you made a motion. What was your motion, Counselor Dominguez?
You want me to make a new one? I make a motion to table the
No,
whole thing?
you already have, you have a motion. We just want to clarify what your
The motion was, now that we have the maps, to have a work session and decide where we would enforce this. But because there's so many pieces, it's confusing right now to be able to hash it out. But the map that we asked for and to separate out the parks, now we have a visual of where we can decide what I'm with Jan. I don't think people should have guns in parks, but then there's open spaces and I'm with the chief. And just now that we have the map, I think we have a way to look and unpack it, but I don't know if it can happen right now. So
Okay.
now if we need to get to the hours,
So you got the motion to table it. And then we had a second. Did anybody second that motion?
I seconded it to table it.
So Carson seconded to table it. So we have a motion and a second. Now we're gonna open it up for discussion. Counselor Vihil, I think you have
I'm confused. Is the motion to table or is the motion, as Mr. Dominguez said, to separate?
The table, because it's to table. I'll make another motion.
We thought we could easily separate, but we can't.
Okay, so then Mr. Dominguez needs to take back that motion and then put a new motion in for tabling it.
That's what I asked in the beginning. Should I make a new one? So I'm gonna remove my motion, the table, to separate and make a motion to table the whole thing and unpack it in a work session.
I'll second it.
so for legal purposes, is that appropriate from our legal counsel?
Yeah, that's a clear motion. Yeah, is table it and schedule a work session.
Okay, so we have a motion, second. Any further discussion? All right. Go ahead and please start voting. Okay,
The motion carried unanimously.
all right. Thank you. Thank you, counsel.
And
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes.
before we move off this topic, looking at your calendar, I think the first opportunity to have a work session is going to be August 28th. And so I want to make sure we're not misreading some of the comments here. Would it be appropriate for staff at the next meeting to bring an ordinance that deals with the hours for the parks? Or is just that one thing still controversial?
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Legally, and I'm asking this to you, legally, because we have brought this up and it was on the agenda, this particular item. Can I make a new motion stating that we approve park hours as desired by the Parks and Rec administrator or Parks and Rec director?
Yes.
I make that motion.
I second.
Okay. Does that solve the problem? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? And just clarification purposes, does that solve the hours issue? Yes.
It solves the hours issue, and I can tell you that I think well, Andy can correct me if I'm wrong. I think that the park facilities have been enforcing those other rules as well, and I expect that they still will, but you've kind of left them hanging out there.
Okay. All right, so we have motion, we have a second. Any further comments, anybody? Okay, start voting.
The motion carried unanimously.
Say
All right.
something.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
So I think we support, so I feel like some of like the dog issues, things like that, we support. So once we separate this out and have a work session, I think that'll help the situation. It was a lot of bits and pieces. So personally, it was just hard then to say, okay, are we voting on this, this, and this? So does that make sense? So.
Okay. Yes.
And also, I do support Andy and Parks and Rec and city staff enforcing no carrying of a weapon inside city buildings. I think that's a no-brainer. I don't think any of us oppose that. So I think you continue to do that through at your discretion, correct?
And can I add to that? Wouldn't the rec center be a city building?
Yeah, and that's why I say it's a rec center facility, I get it, and so is the ice rink, but they're also buildings, and we as a council do support them enforcing a no weapons rule in those buildings. So, I mean, if we gotta make a motion to that effect, or talk about that later, but we haven't had to in the past, they have a sign on the door. I think they keep practicing that as they move forward, and we talk about it at the work session. I think we've solved 2 issues tonight and dealt with some concerns that we had.
That's a very good point, Counselor Carson. And I don't know, Andy, is there a sign at the rec center and the ice rink?
No, at the rec.
Okay.
Okay, so that'll bring us to the next item. Councilor Dominguez, did you have anything? No. All right, no worries. Discussion and motion providing direction on the future of 919 8th Street.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Just because this is a bit of a sensitive topic, I am going to take a little bit of time to make sure we are all on the same page as far as the history and what's been done on this issue. During the last months of 2023, the city was made aware of a foreclosure sale brought by a bank for a property that's next to the water treatment plant, which is 919 8th Street. The city has had a long interest in purchasing this property dating back to when the water treatment plant was actually being constructed. The turnaround was tight. We only had a few days of finding out about the foreclosure sale, but we were able to put in a bid for the amount owed to the bank. And we were able to acquire the foreclosed property. But as a reminder, at the point that there is a public foreclosure, the property is sold by the public trustee for the benefit of the mortgage holder after months of legal notifications to the delinquent borrower for payments and opportunities for that borrower to bring his delinquent account current with the bank and to be able to try to avoid foreclosure. I think this information is important because Mr. Olivas, who has been living at this property, has tried to create a public perception that the city bought the house out from under him or some other types of statements. The bank is the one that initiated this process because Mr. Olivas had become delinquent in his payments on his loan. The bank initiated the foreclosure to get the paid amount that Mr. Olivas owed. And by the time we became involved as a bidder, Mr. Olivas had already lost the house. We had nothing to do with the house being lost. If we would not have purchased it, either the bank would have obtained ownership if no other bids were received, or someone else could have bid on the property as well. Under those scenarios, Mr. Olivas would have had to vacate the property or work out some sort of landlord-tenant relationship. In our opinion, we're not sure if those other owners would have been as patient, but that ship has sailed and we are moving on. Our interest, again, on why we are interested in it is twofold. There is an immediate interest in regards to the turn radius for the bulk delivery of chemicals. We can get the chemicals, the operations do function, but if we were able to get more room, it would help that. The more important one, and this is the one I think council put more weight on when we met on it, was at some point, potentially in 10 years, we may need to expand the water treatment plant. And the expansion is planned to be in that area. So that is obviously the much more significant interest that the city has. And I think it was putting weight on that second interest where council felt that if Mr. Olivas wanted to find a way to purchase the property back, you would be interested in that as long as that there was some options placed on that purchase. And so I'll get to that here in a bit. You did hold an executive session, and this is where you provided the direction that we then shared with Mr. Olivas. So the first part is the opportunity to purchase it back. At that point, it's just for what the city paid for it and if there was any other types of fees. When we paid for it, that was $48,000 and some change. Since then, we have had some other unpaid taxes come to our attention. And so it does bring it up closer to about 50, or it brings it up higher. The other part is that you decided to not charge rent because we actually didn't want to get into a landlord rent tenant relationship. So instead of charging rent, we would place $500 per month onto that purchase price. You gave Mr. Levis a deadline of June 30th, 2024 in order to purchase it back. We made it clear that he would have to pay the full price. We did not want to carry a loan on this. We would provide a special warranty deed. And then if he did purchase it back, we would execute an option that would be good for 50 years. It would run with the land, so it would be binding upon successors, to where we would have the option to purchase it back. It did give Mr. Olivas an inflation factor of 2% per year, type of thing. It noted that we needed to give 1 year notice. So if we did want to purchase it and exercise that option, it's a year notice. And then that it would prohibit him from placing any further liens or encumbrances upon the property. And then if he didn't meet the June 30th deadline, we would need to reconvene in order to determine the next steps, which brings us to this, because we have no other meetings set for June. So to summarize, Mr. Olivas has had 5 months. There's still 1 month kind of left to go in order to purchase the property. He's been living in it rent-free since that time. He has made Facebook posts indicating that we're making a profit, which we are not. We would only be charging what we have been out. In February, Mr. Olivas notified us that his attempts to receive traditional financing were unsuccessful and requested information related to some of the alternatives that were out there. So at that point, Rachel James provided the information for other partners, including the SLV Housing Coalition. And so that was provided on February 13th. Unfortunately, Mr. Olivas didn't really follow up on that until about, at this point, 3 weeks ago. The good news, though, is that from talking to Ms. Melgaris, I think there is a strong chance that if there is engagement and if Mr. Olivas goes through the process, that they might be able to do a loan. There are some steps. They need to make sure he qualifies. It's my understanding they walked him through the application. He has not yet submitted it back to them, and he understands some of the paperwork that he needs to bring back. And in his email, it for the most part lines up with that as well. The next step is if he does qualify, they would need to do an inspection of the home to determine if the home qualifies. Now, if the home is in a certain amount of disrepair, that doesn't mean it doesn't qualify. It just means that it may be a longer process type of situation. And then lastly, they would need to get some sort of waiver from the state in order to use this programming funds to do this type of loan. But she does feel that the uniqueness of the situation could be enticing to the state, but obviously we can't speak to the state and for the state until we go through that process. However, if we can do this, she should be within a week be able to know if he's pre-approved. My assumption would be, if we can figure out if he's pre-approved by June 30th, that's sort of meeting the deadline. And then however much longer, as long as he's engaging actively in that process, it's kind of out of his hands to some degree, and it's the state process and that kind of stuff. So the original terms that council set out, I would assume, and you guys can correct me, would still fall into place. So if it's another 2 months, that's just another $500 each that would be added on to the purchase price, but we're not entering into a landlord-tenant type of relationship. It's the process just needs to come to a close. However, we don't know if that's going to be successful. If for some reason he doesn't qualify, the house doesn't qualify, the state doesn't do the waiver, if he stops engaging again, anything like that, if something falls through on this opportunity, he definitely then is no longer meeting the June 30th deadline. And so for that, we need the Plan B direction from City Council. Is if he then at that point is unsuccessful in purchasing it back, we need you to talk through a few different parts of some options. So one option, and there's details related to each of these. So one option is you could provide direction that Mr. Olivas should vacate the property. If you do this, you should discuss how much length of time do you want to provide. I will tell you from, working a little bit on the housing shortage and those types of things. I know it may feel like a long time, but probably 6 months, it would be a fair amount type of thing. In that additional 6 months, do you want there then to be some sort of rent charged? Because we weren't charging rent before because it was going to be folded into the purchase price. Obviously, if he's not purchasing it, do you want to continue to allow him to live there rent-free type of situation? So that is some stuff you would need to talk through. Another option is you could decide that you want us to enter into a landlord-tenant relationship with Mr. Olivas. If that is true, there's a few things that you need to talk through. The first one is the rent. When we talked in the executive session, we were kind of falling between the 400 to the 750. But again, that was back in December. So we may want to see if those numbers are still kind of holding as a range. The other item that you would need to consider, though, is we would probably need to invest money into the property where our only interest is to demolish it. Because of the rules at the state level of habitability. Thank you. The structure does need to be in a certain condition. And so there may be some requirements that we need to invest in making it a better structure for him to live in. The other item is, we are not experts on housing law, and we don't have anyone who this falls within their job description. So our recommendation would be that we hire a property manager to handle this tenant landlord relationship for us. A third option could be that you just want us to provide more time to Mr. Olivas to purchase the property per the initial terms you've already set out. If this is something you're interested in, we need to know how much longer. We need to know if you want us to be charging rent. And again, we need to know at the end of that term, if he is unsuccessful, what is it you want us to do? Obviously, there are 6 of you, there's technically 7. You may have thought of something that we haven't thought of either as far as options, but we were trying to boil it down to try to help from a conversation perspective. And with that, I'm available for questions, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sanchez. So council, I'll recognize any lights that are on for any suggestions or recommendations or guidance to staff in regards to this matter. Councilor Dominguez, followed by Councilor Krebs.
From my understanding, I'm familiar with this. I'm gonna be vulnerable here, and there was a time when I didn't pay my taxes on my house, and a company out of Texas purchased them. I had a certain time limit to get this place back. In my observations and reading through the emails and looking at this situation, nobody was ever there to support me and help me secure my home back. I really feel, in my opinion, that if he's serious and he really has an option to get his home back, I think we should still honor the time frame of the 30th. And I think by working with Don, if that's what he's doing, I think we have enough information to decide if he's really wanting his home or not. In any other situation, he would have been out already. Another company would have came and took it and he would have been gone. All the other scenarios, and this is hard for me because when I go from one meeting about homelessness and then and this whole, I got to express my opinion on the whole buying taxes and foreclosed homes. I am not a fan of that. I would never go to a court sale. I would never go to a tax sale, and I would never ever purchase anybody's property because for whatever reasons, these people can't afford. I mean, some reasons are probably good, some reasons are bad, but I am against this. And I think I'm new here, but as a municipality, I don't think it's a good practice to have a conversation about homelessness in one room and then go and purchase a property to get some capital gain. That's just my opinion. But I feel he's had a tremendous amount of help with you guys, giving him options to, that just wasn't there for me. And this is real life stuff, and I don't think enabling people helps them either. In any other situation, he would have been thrown out and his property would have been purchased by somebody else. So I just want to thank you as a municipality for giving him the assistance to have options, because in other cases, you wouldn't have an option, and I really hope he understands that. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Dominguez, Counselor Krebs, then Counselor Hensley, then Counselor Jan Vigil.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah.
Looking at the big picture of this and reiterating something that Heather said, he didn't pay rent, which caused it to go into foreclosure. We allow him to live there for free. And if he does meet the deadlines at the end of June, that's great. That's awesome. And I'm so glad that we as a council made that decision to support him in that measure. If it gets declined, which it sounds like it might, there's a chance, or it falls through, even by giving him another 6 months, that's now living there in that property for 2 years. And to even, I am 100% against spending a penny, bringing a house up to code that we're going to demolish in 5 years, 10 years. I think we've gone above and beyond. And as I said, but this individual has to meet us halfway with it. I think we've extended every possibility to him. If he works with Dawn and he gets the funding that he needs, great, awesome. We're there for him as well. But if he doesn't, then I will be for a 6-month eviction.
Thank you, Counselor Krebs, Counselor Hensley, then Counselor Jan Vigil.
So for time's sake, I support that too. The idea that we can't keep enabling. I don't want to get into I don't want to be a landlord. So I definitely don't want that path. And so he's had all the opportunities. I think we've really worked with him. So I'm hopeful that it comes through for June 30th. And then from there, though, then also the eviction.
Thank you, Counselor Hensley. Counselor Jan Vigil.
Well, the last time we talked about this was back in January, correct? January, February?
I believe it was December.
December, okay. So I'm reading the communication. In the last months of 2023, the city was made aware of a foreclosure sale. That purchase there, should that have come before city?
The timing of it made it to where
yeah.
we didn't have the ability to do it.
Okay, I agree with you on that.
So normally the answer is yes.
Okay, that also, a question off of that was the purchase amount for 48,000. Does that amount have to come before a city, that kind of purchase? Cause I know you have some discretionary spending at your own, I forgot what that limit is.
I believe so you're asking some of the legal questions. What I can tell you is normally we would bring something like that to you. Like ethically, we would bring that to you. It's an unbudgeted item and it's a large amount.
Okay, thank you. And like I said, 5 months ago is, I don't like this, man. The city should not be a landlord. The city should not be in the business of doing stuff like this, but it happened. So, and then Mr. Olivas hasn't really shown great effort to get this going. I want to give him till the 30th. And I'm kind of maybe on the other side, give him more time. We don't know what's going on in his life. I don't know maybe he's hit some hard times. I know he's hit some hard times in his life. I would be one to maybe even extend that June 30th to maybe the end of August or September, something like that, to give him more time to get it done.
Thank you, Counselor Jan Vigil. Counselor Carson.
I think that if he's making a reasonable effort, like, I don't know that approval it can happen. I mean, you got 2 weeks. To me, it seems like there's been some slack, and I'll be frank, you know what I mean? Like Jamie said, you get put as a homeowner or a property owner in a strange position or a position where you gotta react, you do what you have to. I don't feel like I've seen that exactly, but I think the 30th is fair. If you see effort and there's something happening, I think it's fair to give him that time. But I gotta concur with everybody up here. If there's no action from here to then, we can't we've already kind of set a precedence as long as we keep these budgetary items this big coming in front of council and we don't have these dynamic situations like this. I don't think we're gonna get into this again. And I really think it would be horrible practice to do it because then we're setting a precedence and we're just setting ourselves up. But I agree with everybody up here. I think the 30th, if you're seeing reasonable effort and he's doing something, then, we talk about it and we let him continue. If you're not seeing anything, then, we've already made a call on that.
So Counselor Carson, I think you might have stepped out for 1 second. So I want to see if you're on the same page of maybe what 2 other council members have indicated. It's if he's making progress and if this is, then to let that kind of continue, that type of thing. But if it falls through and it looks like he's not going to purchase it back and miss the deadline, or, if it looks like it's making progress and it's mid-July that it falls through type of thing. At that point, they were recommending a 6-month notice for him to then vacate the property. So I just want to, is that?
Yeah, I heard that. I was in here for that.
Oh, okay, okay. So are you, I believe as Counselor Krebs and Counselor Hensley that were of that opinion. Are you of the same opinion? Okay. I just wanted to make sure that there was the alignment and that I wasn't missing something.
No, I'm good with that.
Okay, and Counselor Dominguez as
So
well?
He's
Okay.
about to say something and then I'll say something after you. Go ahead.
Are you done, Mike?
Yeah, I'm done. Sorry.
What does the communication look like? Is this you with emails to him, like after tonight? Because I think it's going to be instrumental in him really understanding that.
So-
Because I know he needs to meet us halfway, and that's part of the biggest thing here. So I just want to make sure that would that just come in an email form? I know we've reached out to other homeowners in our neighborhood with similar scenarios. I haven't reached out to Mr. Olivas yet, because I was waiting on this to pan out. But I think I am willing to go see him if I can and just let him know, look.
Well, so I was going to follow up immediately with an email, but following your December work session, we met face to face. And so I think doing that this time and then we also wanted to make sure he had something in writing, because sometimes being face to face, and it can be overwhelming. And if you don't really understand stuff, and the minute we start talking about options and different things like that, and it was serious. I mean, we were like, here's your deadline and all that. So we wanted to make sure he had it in writing as well. So we can definitely meet with him, face to face again, and then also have the email. After that first initial one, he didn't seem to need he didn't request a face-to-face. I would periodically check in with him. And then that's when he would reply that the traditional didn't work. And so then we sent him the others, and then it kind of went quiet. And so I checked in again and I wasn't getting some responses. And then I had to send a strongly worded email. And then he finally did respond, and then he finally started engaging with the Housing Coalition at that time as well. And so I do think the messaging has to be pretty serious for him to.
So the Housing Coalition is going to play a critical role in this. So-
Correct.
So
And
you
we're
will be able
all-
to contact.
Yeah,
So
and
we
I've
know.
been in contact with Ms. Melgaris. He's been in contact with Ms. Melgaris as well as their office staff. We're-
Just this week, right? From
And
the email.
beginning last week,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it seems like we're gonna have a consensus because I'm of the opinion we laid out all the rules up front several months ago. We've given ample opportunity. We had a deadline for a reason because there's a deadline. And he's in a position right now to where if he gets that pre-approval, that means a lot. I mean, we can give him all the time it takes. If the lender says 2 or 3 months to fund, we're fine. But we make deadlines for a reason, so that we'll know what next steps we need to take. So I'm of the opinion that we stick to what we laid out and we move forward and see what happens by the end of the month.
I guess for me, if we could just have a motion that if all else fails, that we would proceed with a 6-month notice to vacate. I don't want there to be any confusion on this. And so it's an all else fails type of motion.
Okay, so you want a motion from council right now if all else fails?
The
Blah, blah, blah.
option that you're selecting is a 6-month notice to vacate.
Okay, with no rent being collected in those 6 months?
You know, in all honesty, that's something for you to discuss. By not charging rent, it keeps us out of having to invest in the property.
I would highly recommend against charging any rent.
So,
Okay. Yeah, and plus that would give him 6 months to save up for a down payment to move into another house. And if you're taking $500, that's $3,000 plus the whole year. That's $6,000 that he could put to his benefit.
and I'm glad you said that. Obviously, we would give him some of it's going to be the same, but the information on resources for housing as well. And try to help him with those connections.
Yes. Okay.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Council Yanvio?
Just want to communicate that I'll be voting no with this because I would like to give him more time after June 30th.
So we are given more time, if I'm not mistaken, right? Before, is it?
I think it's a little bit of a different time. I think the time you guys are comfortable giving is if it's additional time because of the closing and related to the financing and all of that kind of stuff. I think Counselor Vihil was talking about time, but that if this falls through, he could still have time to investigate other types of options. Am I correct?
Get what you said? You good? Okay. All right, so we have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? All right, please start voting. Okay. Ms. Martinez?
Give me just a second. The motion passed 4-1. Somebody voted no.
That was,
Okay, that was Counselor
Counsel-
Vihil
yeah,
voted no.
Councilor Vihil voted no.
5-1, not 4-1.
All right, good. That brings us to the next item, Human Resources Risk Management, second reading and public hearing for ordinance number 8, 2024.
Thank you, Mayor. As it's been mentioned, it is getting late and this is the second reading, so I'll keep this short. This is to allow us to do a reclassification to what was our case manager in the co-responder program. It would take half of that position and have them become the program manager for lead. And then the other half would still be kind of program management related for the co-responder as well. The financial impact that we expect from this, the fiscal impact is about 4,000. Although by making half of it, I should have updated this, by making half of it through LEAD, we will receive about 29,000 regular grant funding for that half of it. So I guess it's to the benefit of us from a fiscal perspective. And I can answer any questions now or after the public hearing.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing first. So it's for the second reading of ordinance number 8, 2024. If we have anyone in the audience who would like to make any comments during this public hearing, please come up to the podium and make your comments. Okay, I don't see anyone in the audience coming up to make any comments, so we'll go to Zoom. Ms. Martinez, if you could share with the Zoom participants how to raise their hand to be recognized to make comments in this public hearing.
Yes, sir. If you're on the Zoom app and you want to speak for this public hearing, you'll use the raise hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're on a telephone, you'll dial *9. Mayor, I don't see anyone raising their hand.
Okay, I don't see any hands raised either, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to council for a motion or comments.
Mayor, I
Councilman
move that
Henson.
we approve ordinance number 8-2024.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, if not, please start voting. Ms. Martinez?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the next item on the agenda. Resolution number 5, 2024, resolution amending firefighter stipends.
Thank you, Mayor. As I've shared with council, I am doing different types of meetings with employee groups, smaller meetings. And two of the meetings that I recently had with the volunteer firefighters, there was two different topics that were brought up. And so the first one that was asked was, there hasn't been any increases to their stipends in recent years. And they pointed out that for this pay period, we did an 11% as a combination of a cost of living pay plan correction. And so they wanted to know if anything was going to be done for them, which is a very fair question. The second meeting, another aspect of what was brought up is that there is one rate that they are provided when they respond to a call. So if the call is 30 minutes, they get $20. If the call is 5 hours, they get $20. Now, there's reasons for some of that, but their consternation was that didn't seem right when you're on a really long call type of situation. The reason we managed to have two meetings without me answering the first question is there are some legal considerations we have to look at, but without just doing increases. And it's per FLSA, if we want to keep them designated as volunteers, there's limits to one, how much we can pay them and how we pay them. And so those questions get at both of those. So after the first question, Jolene, as the HR manager, needed to research the market to determine what 20% was of the full-time market, because you cannot compensate more than 20% type of situation. So we needed to determine that threshold. The next item is way back in 2016, when we kind of did some of the restructuring to protect ourselves on that volunteer status, we were advised that we could not have a tiered system. In the meantime, then when we were looking at this, we reached back out to legal counsel to say, okay, we know we can't have like a 3-4 tiered system, but could we have just one? Could we have regular call, large call? And they said you're pushing it, but they feel like it would be okay, but definitely not doing any more tiers than that. So the recommendation that we have before you tonight is to do an 11% increase to the monthly stipend that the volunteers get. Their stipend is dependent upon what their category is, their status, captain, fire driver, firefighter, those types of things. That may not seem like a lot. It provides, it's comparable to what we did for the rest of the organization. Ironically, where they end up pulling more of their compensation is actually the call volume calls. So that one, we're actually recommending a 25% increase. And so we're recommending that instead of $20 per call, it's $25 per call. And we're recommending that we have a large call rate, and that would be $40. Now, again, this is not per hour. If we start doing per hour, they're employees and we run into a lot of different issues type of thing. So in the council communication, it lists out what the monthly stipends would change. I just talked about the calls. We also had a few other types of calls that we're recommending that since we're changing from 20 to 25, we kind of do the same for that. We had a weekend duty rate that was at 20, so we recommend keeping it similar to the other, increasing it to 25. We also have the call rate that we do when they report to the airport. So we would recommend that be the $25 as well, just for consistency. And I think that is the extent of the recommendations that we have for you tonight.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sanchez. Councilor Carson?
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve resolution 5-2024 that would increase the stipends paid to volunteer firefighters.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please start voting.
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, committee reports. Do we have anyone with any committee reports? Councilor Cribbs,
Thank you, Mayor.
welcome.
I will keep this brief. Because all my meetings happen close to the end of the month, so they all bundle up. The Alamosa Creative District, we started our public outreach. They had a booth at Summerfest, engaging the public and discussing what the creative district would look like if we were able to get the state to adopt one here in Alamosa. And so you'll be able to hopefully see them soon at First Fridays, at the flea market, things of that nature. They're looking to educate and to make it a little bit more of an engagement. They're also looking for input on what their name could be, if it wants to stay Alamosa Creative District or do something a little funner than that. So if you see them, stop by, say hello, ask lots of questions. The Alamosa Senior Center had a successful ladies' tea for Mother's Day and sold root beer floats during Summerfest, and they're planning a Father's Day event. So everything's going very well over at the Senior Center. DRG, I did attend their meeting. It was my first time attending, and so I took some notes, but I was more of a fly on the wall, just trying to absorb all the information. So you'll get a more complete report from me in the coming months about what they're doing. And I look forward to learning more with them. And my final report is the library board. A couple of interesting things happened during the library board. A state law was passed protecting libraries and library staff and things of that nature. So we had to go through a whole lot of the policies to bring some of the policy language up to date to match the state, I say law, but the state ordinance that was passed. Mostly it was making it more inclusive for all and making sure that that language reflected well in the policies that we've had for years and years. And we also spoke about the possibility of a bookmobile in the future. So that was very exciting. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Councilor Cribbs. Okay, do we have any other committee reports? Okay, we don't have any committee reports. Let's go down to staff announcements.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to remind everyone that this is First Friday, and we have Councilor Carson and Leanne, who will be hosting the city's table. So come and give them support. And then we just finished Summerfest, and while it may not technically be a city event, I think over the years, Andy and his team have been playing a much larger role. They're still volunteers. I want them to get kudos as well. But Andy and his team, we've got Jasmine involved, obviously parks, police. There's a lot of touches from a city perspective. And so it was great weather, and I've heard nothing but good things about Summerfest. And so thank you to staff for that.
Okay, thank you. That brings us down to council comments. Do we have any council comments? Councilor Cribbs?
I just wanted to echo Heather's statement. The city staff busted their butts on Summerfest, and it was fun and amazing, and I think everyone there had a good time, so very much appreciated.
Thank you, Councilor Cribbs. I'll wrap things up since I don't see any lights on. Want to say thank you to the entire city staff for the Summerfest festivities and events and making sure there was a presence there in all different capacities. Great job. The other thing I wanted to point out is I want to thank the staff for the Levita Avenue ribbon cutting that took place and all the staff that showed up, as well as Jasmine for helping create the talking points for that event. Also, a constituent reached out to me the other day, and she wanted to thank 3 police officers, Officer Crowler, Officer Birch, Detective Birch, and I'm trying to pronounce the last name that starts with a K, Cope. Yeah, Cope to Common. Okay, forgive me for messing up that name. But Also, those three were instrumental in helping keep drugs off of an alleyway in our community, and that resident was very pleased and thankful for that. Okay, that's all I have for council comment, so we'll go ahead and we're gonna go into a motion for executive session. Am I right, our city attorney? And okay, so if someone could make that motion and read the,
Mayor, I make a motion, we go into executive session.
okay, does she have to read all the rest of it? You have to read all of it. There you go.
I can do it if you don't have
Yeah,
it up.
If you can go
That
ahead.
would, that would be
please.
an executive session pursuant to section 24-6-402 sub 4 sub E of the Colorado Revised Statutes to develop positions and instruct negotiators on the use of city funds to meet required match for a potential DOLA grant.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go into this executive session. No further business will be discussed after that. Okay.
You need to vote.
Hmm? Oh, we
You
need to
gotta
vote. Oh, yeah, we need to vote. All right, we got a motion and a second. No further discussion. Please start voting.
The
Okay.
motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
After 10, everybody's sleepy.